We're going to get our meeting going. This is a posted board meeting. It's not a meeting in which we're going to conduct any board action. It's just a listening session. But since it's a posted meeting, I'm going to start with the pledge. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand and turn around behind you and look at the flag and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance I'm Terry Ziegler. I'm the president of the school board. I'm going to ask, we have most of the board members present tonight. I want to ask them to stand for a moment so you can see who the folks are who are listening to this information and going to make some decisions later on. So if you folks would stand, please, my board members. This is Paul Lorge, Joe Mell, Dan McKelvey, Clayton Riddle, and Julia McNally is at another meeting tonight. She couldn't be here for this one. She was here last night. Thanks. I'm sorry. And Mark Kaler. I'm sorry, Mark. You're sitting on the wrong side. Sorry about that. So this meeting grew out of the need after the last referendum failed to retool. And so we formed an ad hoc facilities committee led by Paul Lorge, and then Mark and Clayton are on that committee. Out of that grew a facilities committee, which a lot of people served on, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so this grows out of the need to have some listening sessions after we did a lot of work to put some options out there. So 2 options will be presented tonight. There'll be several presentations, and we'll have plenty of time to hear your questions and comments at the end. If you want to make a question or a comment, this will be recorded, so we ask you to move up to the microphone here, identify yourself, tell us where you live, like we always do at public comment sections at board meetings, but that'll help facilitate recording for the recording later. So with that said, I'm going to give it over to Jeff Nelson, our superintendent.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you all for being here tonight. Hopefully as you came in, you grabbed 2 sheets of paper, or 2 different items. One is this goldenrod sheet, and this is a sheet that we're asking for some feedback from you tonight. So there's an opportunity to write some things in, and then as you leave, to drop it off. Or if you prefer, and you'd rather type, but you'd like to reflect on it and send something, there's also a survey monkey that's listed at the top of that where it says, please provide your feedback on this form. Right underneath that is a spot for you to do that and provide us feedback, whether you like the option or questions you still have about it or whatever it may be in that sense. And then the way the night will go is we're going to make a presentation that will encompass both of the options that we're talking about tonight. And it's sort of hard to see some of the finer pieces of it, so that's why we've given you a handout. So if you don't have a handout, we'll make sure we get one for you, but it will help you be able to see in detail each building as we go through each building, so that's why we provided you with that. So when I started here on July 1st, the discussion was obviously about the referendum that had failed in April, and even though the referendum had failed, our needs were still the same. And so we discussed what are the drivers that are going to that have led us to the point of needing to look at a referendum. What were the drivers that were used last year, and what are the drivers that we need to use to look ahead into the future? And the first thing, the reason why we end up looking at a referendum in the spring was the state of Grafton Elementary School. So Grafton Elementary School is the way it was built, being below the ground level where it should be. It's causing issues that need to be resolved immediately. So with that as a backdrop, the discussion is, okay, we know that displaces some of our students and our families, so it's an opportunity to look at our school system and what can we do to make our system better? What can we do to make our early childhood through senior year a better system? And so that's where we talked about gaining efficiencies for our budget. So with the district of 2,100 students, having 5 buildings, long-range planning, the personnel costs and so forth, is that the most efficient way for our district to be able to long-term plan? As well as we want to be able to provide collaboration opportunities for our staff. We know that working in isolation is not best practice. It's not the best thing to do. Working with colleagues is, and so how can we gain more opportunities like that? We also know that our buildings are safe and secure right now, but they're not ideal. When these buildings were built, the doors were unlocked all the time. And so now you're in an ideal setting, you're going to have a double entry of someone be able to walk in and then not be able to get into the building until they speak with someone. They're safe now. We have security cameras that are set up so that our staff can buzz people in. But improved safety and security is something that we want to be forward-thinking for the next 20 years. What does that look like in each of our buildings? As well, we know that kids learn differently. They learn differently than they did 15 years ago than they did 10 years ago. So we also know, that education is changing. We know that careers are changing. They talk about setting kids up for success for careers that may not even have started yet. So we need to make sure that we're creating flexible spaces that can help students learn in a collaborative manner, but at the same time also collaborative or flexible spaces. So if our district grows, can we add on to that without it being an exorbitant cost? So as we're planning, can we make sure if we grow, we can add on to it, and we're thinking ahead. We aren't going to overbuild, but we are going to plan that if we grow, we can add on to. And then our science facilities. That was one of the pieces that is something that hasn't been touched since 1971. So you think of 1971, for some of us, that's like a long time ago. For others of us, that seems like long. I was 0 before then, and others, 1971 doesn't seem that long ago, right? I actually was 0 in 1971. I was born in 1971. So science facilities were done then, and they haven't been touched, but we've added programs in our science area. So we've added Project Lead the Way. So in 2013, 2014, you think of the science field, the biomedical field as a growing field, the healthcare industry itself. It's a great opportunity for our students to be getting experience in high school that prepares them for future careers that would be successful in that sense. And in 13, 14, we had 102 students out of 760 at the high school. So as you look down in a 4-year period of time, you now have 140, 150, 174, 180 students that are engaged in this Project Lead the Way class that's just being held in classrooms that haven't been remodeled since 1971. So we want to continue to prepare students for future success, and upgrading those facilities is one of the drivers that we have. Another driver is our tech ed classrooms and our tech ed spaces. And we're very proud of the fact that our Autos does extremely well on the national level, not just on the state level, but on the national level. We offer a woods and a metals for students to be able to look at trades, to be able to gain practical experiences while they're in high school. And they've added some STEM curriculum adoption, so they're very much with the times. We're upgrading. We're looking to how can we help students be more successful as they leave our schools, and no matter what it may be as a comprehensive high school. We've added engineering courses in the past 2 years, so you can see there's 57 students that are now engaged in our Introduction to Engineering, Principles of Engineering, but those are also being done in spaces that haven't been upgraded. It's in cramped spaces, opportunities that really could help our students. They're doing great now. What could they do if we had facilities that would go along with the type of teachers that we have teaching those classes? We need to upgrade our facilities for students with significant cognitive disabilities. We are providing services that they need, but where they're located now is not ideal for them to be able to have their parents drop them off, to have their parents pick them up, for opportunities for changing that needs to occur with them, and things of that nature that really they need the privacy that needs to be given to those students. And that was also not a factor when our buildings were built, and is now a reality in that sense. And so we need to make sure that we're upgrading our facilities for that population of our school community as well. And then handicap accessibility needs to be addressed at all schools. There's many things that aren't handicap accessible that need to be addressed, and so that's a driver for us. The discussion last time was a 712 facility, and so one of the things we talked about was that really 6th grade needs to be added on to that concept, because in 6th grade is when the specials start. So if you were to have a school system where it's, I think it was going to be 2-6, then where would those specials? Those specials would be all by themselves. They'd be traveling. Maybe you'd have part-time. If you have part-time, it's hard to keep people in a place. So it really needs to be looking, if you're going to look at a concept that has middle school and high school, you really need to be having a 612 concept so that you're able to keep the staff that you have, you're able to share staff more efficiently, you're able to have students with teachers and so forth in that sense. And also we know the town has not done a survey on this, so we don't have data from the town, but we know that the village, the 3 years of surveys that they've given in 13, 14, and 15, the number one reason in 2013, 2014, and the number 3 reason of why people choose Grafton as a community to live in is the school system. So we know that a strong community has a strong school system, and a strong school system has a strong community. And they don't exist on their own. They exist together. And if you don't have a strong school system, people aren't going to want to live in our community. And if you don't have a strong community, you're not going to have a strong school system, because you need parents, you need people that are engaged in the system helping the school be successful. And so people are choosing to live in Grafton because of our school system, and we want to also continue to have that because that helps us as a school system, but it also helps you as a homeowner because that's going to be a direct correlation between my home value and the ability to sell when I want to sell or the lack thereof in that sense. So those are the drivers that we've talked about as our committee has met throughout this time. Paul Lorge is the chair of our committee, and he will walk us through the process that we have followed in multiple ways.
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you all very much for coming tonight. Really do appreciate it so that we can get the information out, but more importantly, that we can hear from you regarding the work that's been done. And what I want to do tonight is just touch briefly on the work that's been done. Facilities has been on the minds of the board and the district for many, many years. I mean, 2008, 2009, facilities were evaluated as a first study was done for 4K. 2011, Clayton, Mr. Riddle joined the board, and he really pushed the board hard in terms of what our facilities needs, short-term, mid-term, long-term. In 2012, based upon that pushing, Dr. Pachura actually commissioned a study to take a look at all of the facilities within the district, all of those major systems, the heating, the air conditioning, the plumbing, the roofing, the entire A to Z for the district. Study was commissioned in 2012. In the summer of 2012, Plunkett Rasick Architects and Kapoor Associates issued their reports. Their reports are lengthy. I believe they're online on the district website for you to see. But those reports identified over $20 million of maintenance needs, identified as A, B, or C, midterm or short range, midterm, and long range items that needed to be addressed within the district. The most pressing of those needs were addressed throughout 2013, 14, and continue to be to this day. In fact, we've spent about $3.5 million addressing the most pressing things over the last 4 years, relative to the conditions that were identified. And after addressing those and seeing the magnitude of those that are still left, we realized more work needed to be done. We needed to look deeper and dig deeper into the work that needed to be done. So we actually, as a board, we issued a request for proposal to local architects and construction firms. And in 2014, we engaged Hoffman Planning, Design, and Construction to assist in the continued evaluation of our facilities. They did their own facilities assessment throughout the early part of 2015. As their work drew to a close, we realized we needed to get community input, and the first Grafton Citizens Facility Committee was formed in the spring of 2015. That committee consisted of about 50 members. Those members were picked by the superintendent at the time to join and serve on this committee and continue to work with Hoffman to understand what the facilities needs were. That committee met throughout the spring and into the summer. They identified 10 options, 10 different options as to how we might be able to address not just the maintenance needs, but the facilities needs in totality for the long term. And those options range simply, we're going to invest $20 million to take care of all of those maintenance items, all the way up to a $60 million option that called for a new middle school built on the GES site and a new elementary school at Kennedy. At the time, the board looked at those options and picked the option that you saw this past April 2016. That option called for $49.5 million referendum in two questions. The first question was $47.5 million. That was to address the maintenance items at all locations, build the new 7th and 8th grade middle school on the GES site, convert Kennedy Elementary and Woodview Elementary to primary schools that would hold 4K to 2nd grade, and then convert John Long Middle School to an elementary school, this building here to an elementary school that would have 3rd grade to 6th grade. That was question one, $47.5 million. Question two was $1.8 million. It dealt with the outside athletic facilities. Those were the two questions that were posed in the April referendum, and as we know, that referendum failed, 45 to 55 on question one, and 48 to 52 on question two. Fact of the matter is, regardless of the outcome of that referendum, our needs didn't change. The needs are still there. We still have the 20 million plus maintenance items that are out there. We still have issues relative to the facilities and how they're being used. And one of the critical things that needed to be evaluated or studied more at that point in time is what is really the status of GES? What is the viability of GES as a building? And in fact, we commissioned another study with the Sigma Group, a local group here, and our internal resources to really dig deep into GES. And a report was issued, and the conclusion of that report was that it would cost as much to repair that, to bring that up to a state that it could be usable for an extended period of time, as it would to build new. At the same time, we realized we had to get more information from the community. The board, that's what Terry mentioned earlier, the board then formed an ad hoc facilities committee. Myself, Mark, and Clayton. We conducted listening sessions throughout June, 5 listening sessions throughout the community. And also at that time, we established a Fund 46. One of the things that we heard in the listening sessions, and one of the things that we heard as a result of the referendum, is we need to have money set aside for maintenance. Regardless of what we do, we need a better plan to set money aside. Fortunately, in 2013, the state legislature passed Act 336, which gave school districts the ability to establish a long-term capital improvement trust fund, Fund 46. We adopted Fund 46 in July. We funded it to the tune of $360,000 last year. We budgeted $100,000 this year. The requirements of that fund require those funds not be used for 5 years. Our goal as a board is every year to put money into that fund such that there's a minimum $1 million available when that money is available for us to start using for maintenance. In July, the board said, look, we need to dig deeper into this thing. And at that time, we formed a new committee, a facilities advisory committee. The board asked me and the other two to form this committee, but rather than selecting members, we thought it would be better to ask for people who wanted to participate in the committee to apply. We created a simple application online. Why are you interested in serving on the committee? And what are your qualifications for serving on that committee? We wanted to get a cross-representation of all the folks within the community, people who voted yes, people who voted no, architects, plumbers, electricians, buildings, people in the trades, people in financing. 55 people applied. We selected 20 members at large. We added 8 staff members that represent each of the buildings throughout the district, and then the 3 board members to serve on that facilities advisory committee. So 30 of us have been meeting since August 10th of this year. These are the committee members. And certainly I'd ask if you're here, if you could stand and be recognized. Thank you all very much for your work. So thank you all. That very first meeting in August, we needed to bring everybody up to speed. So we looked at the age and the capacity of all the schools, using Hoffman's formulas, which are formulas that are prescribed for building and improving school facilities, looked at enrollment trends, looked at the conditions of our schools. The meeting started with a tour of the facility that we happened to be at for that meeting. We wanted to get up close and personal and see what the conditions were ourselves. We looked at the program needs that Hoffman worked with Jeff and with staff here at school to understand, where are the challenges in the spaces that we have. We looked at school finance basics, state aid basics, to understand, well, what is a referendum, how does it impact the budget? And what methods might be available for us if we were going to go to referendum for funding. And of course, we looked at the April 2016 referendum and all the related information. The second meeting, if you recall, in 2000, there was a referendum. Some of the things that came out of the listening session were, well, where did that money get spent? How did it get spent at each of the buildings? And if we change something at some of the buildings, or we take a building down, or we modify a building, what about that investment that we made in 2000? Are we losing that investment? What was the nature and the extent of that investment by building? We looked at current legislation on construction costs. We looked at uses of our facilities and whether we should have one or two or multiple referendum questions again. That legislation is mostly associated with prevailing wage changes that have been made in recent legislation that may or may not impact costs. Our third meeting, we dealt with communications. How do we better engage the community to get, information out relative to a referendum or just the facilities needs in general? In the next 3 meetings, the last one that was November 2nd, was really looking at options that were developed within the committee and how those options might serve the district moving forward. That last meeting there, we started, I think, with another 7 different options. We whittled them down and whittled them down and whittled them down. That last meeting, we zeroed on the 2 that you're going to see tonight. We reviewed preliminary diagrams and phasing requirements and costs. And so it brings us here tonight so that we can share with you the work that we've been doing at a more detailed level so that we can hear whatever questions and comments that you might have relative to these options so that we can continue our work. Our work isn't done yet. Next step is to take the information we gain at these listening sessions, meet as a committee again, continue to review the options and synthesize the information so that we can put together recommendations for the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jody Andres. Jody is with Hoffman, and he's been leading our efforts on the design side.
So tonight we're going to go through, as Paul said, the 2 options that the committee arrived at. They looked at several options beyond this, evaluated in different ways in terms of operations and many factors as they look through this. So the 2 options that we're going to review tonight, we're going to go through each option completely. We're going to start with a very broad overview, and then we're going to get into more specifics of each option. But before we get into that, the paper referred to these options as A and B, the article that was just published. That's how the committee had been working with it. Tonight we're referring to these options as a 2-campus option and a 3-campus option. So A corresponds to the 3-campus option that we're going to look at first. B corresponds to the 2-campus option. So these also follow along exactly with what you have in your handout here. Okay? So starting with the 3-campus option, you can see right away we give you the grand total, and we'll go through this if you've looked ahead or if you were waiting for the slides up here. The specific budgets for each of these sites and each of these buildings is listed on each of the pages. But the overall budget for this option currently stands at about $45 million. So the 3-campus option, as we look at it, currently GES is a 2-section early childhood through 5th grade. And when we talk about sections, we're just talking about the number of classes per grade. So in other words, you have 2 first grades, 2 second grades, 2 third grades, and so on. So in this option, the 2-section early childhood through 5th grade Grafton Elementary becomes deconstructed and the site reclaimed. So we're taking down the entire building and reclaiming the site there. Kennedy Elementary is currently a 2-section 4K through 5th. There is no early childhood there at that site. There's not room for it. In this option, it becomes a 3-section elementary, early childhood through 5th grade. Woodview, in this case, currently a 2-section school for early childhood through 5th. That becomes also a 3-section early childhood through 5th grade. So essentially what this option means is all the elementary schools or all elementary school students in the district get divided between these 2 schools. So now currently they're divided in 3. That goes down to 2 here. So half of them go to Kennedy, half of them go to Woodview. Following on with John Long Middle School, all students currently in the district for 6th through 8th grade go to this facility. We're not changing that in this option. That would continue to be used as a 6th through 8th grade facility. Lastly, Grafton High School, 9th through 12. Again, that doesn't change in this option. It continues to be used for 9th through 12th grade students. On the bottom here, you see new district maintenance building. In both options that we're considering tonight, the current district maintenance facilities were, in other words, where Jamie stores mowers and trucks and parts and everything that he needs to maintain the buildings in the district and the grounds, that's currently housed in Grafton Elementary School, actually kind of in the northwest corner of that building. Several rooms in there, believe they were old shops at one time. Those, obviously, when Grafton Elementary School comes down, those would go with it. So we need to create a new, essentially 7,800 square foot maintenance facility somewhere in the district. Most likely what we've been considering so far is that building would be a very simple maintenance, almost like a metal building type building. That would be located on the high school site someplace. We haven't specifically cited it yet, but there is sites available for that on high school property. That's not to say that we couldn't consider it on the site that we're here right now. It's one of those things that's yet to be determined. As was mentioned, we're still working through some of these items. So the specifics of these options, just a little kind of lay of the land for each of these as we go through it. On each of these, you'll see a summary of what the, you'll see a summary eventually of the information for that particular building. So in this case, we're looking at the information for Kennedy Elementary. You see an amount of renovations, in other words, the square footage in that building in this option that's being renovated, and you also see an amount of square footage for additions. So in this case, we have 6,255 square feet for renovations, 33,575 for additions. Right below that, you see 4 budget items: maintenance budget, site budget, remodeling budget, and additions budget. It's as it reads. Any of the maintenance items that was previously referred to would be taken care of in that part of the budget for maintenance. The site budget is any of the parking lots or outside things that were taken care of, like parking, playgrounds, sidewalks, those kind of things. The remodeling is any spaces inside the building that we're changing, and then lastly, the additions would be any new construction that we're adding onto that building. The diagrams themselves, the solid colors represent new construction, and the hatched or the cross-lined areas actually represent remodeled construction. So walking through this very briefly, again, we're trying to fit 3 sections of students in a school that's currently only housing 2. So there is a significant 2-story addition. You see included in that addition are classrooms, 4th and 5th grade. As we look at this, especially for elementary school, if it's 1st or 5th or 4th, it's not too much, it doesn't make too much of a difference right now, so those are placeholders, but what's important is the quantity and the number of classrooms are accurate in these diagrams. So currently we're just showing on the lower level, because that site does drop off there, so we're going to take advantage of that. The lower level would have a new gymnasium, 5th grade, and that would be where your art and music are located. On the upper level, the media center is undersized where it's at, so that would be moved into the new addition central to the classrooms, and then 4th grade would be there. And the offices in those smaller spaces that you see there, those are for the support staff and paraprofessionals that are in the district that are doing programs like reading, math tutors, those kind of programs, and special needs, psychology or psychologists, and those kind of functions would happen in the smaller group and office spaces. The existing building, you see essentially what we're doing in the kind of western wing there behind the current gymnasium. That's going to become a primary area. So for your younger age students at this facility, it would be kindergarten, 4K, early childhood. The ID, which was formerly cognitively disabled, is that space is located out in there. And then we are in this option looking at remodeling the office to provide that secure entry and expand those slightly. If you see, all they're really getting is some additional conference room space there, and then the remainder of that adjacent classroom will become a special needs room. One of the larger problems at Kennedy is the undersized gymnasium. So what's currently the gym and cafeteria will be just the cafeteria, but we are expanding the undersized kitchen there. It'll just be a serving kitchen. We'll get to the production kitchen, which is at the high school, in a little bit, but we do need to expand that for serving, dishwashing, storage of the items that they need at that facility to serve the kids. This is the site that's being proposed for Kennedy. You can see 11th Avenue, which currently takes care of your bus and student drop-off traffic. What we're creating here is behind or to the west of the building, we're creating another through drive that would accommodate bus traffic in this case. One of the goals that we try to do for every site in the district is we try and segregate the bus traffic from the parent traffic. You can control bus traffic, you can't necessarily control where parents drive. So the thought is to have the site as safe as possible, you want to keep those separate. So in this case, the drive-through on the back would be for buses. Parents would continue to drop off on 11th Ave. You see the addition to the south here. There is going to be some need because we are creating new impervious area or parking area. There is going to be need for some sort of stormwater management, so we're alluding to that here. New playground space because we're taking the space of the existing playground. A new paved play area in between here, which can double as large event parking. And then we're actually expanding some of the parking towards the village tennis courts up there, mainly because we're adding a whole nother grade or a whole nother section full of staff members that need to have a place to park here. So staff parking would be up here. You can see the kitchen addition here. And then again, this summary is the same summary that you had on the first page. We just repeat it there so you don't have to flip back and forth. Moving on to Woodview, again, this is your other half of your elementary school students would attend this facility. One of the bigger challenges here is the commons as it currently exists, commons and gymnasium as it currently exists is too small for that facility. Certainly is too small when we're adding a whole other section of elementary school students. So you see a new gymnasium here. The existing gymnasium would still be used for multi-purpose for PE and for cafeteria, but you're not going to have your scheduling conflicts. That's the same situation, obviously, at Kennedy that we were just talking about. So you see the new gymnasium here out to the west of the site. We are relocating the office in this option here to the southwest corner. You'll see in a bit, or if you want to page ahead, you'll see that the new drop-off is going to happen off the west end of the building here. So it makes sense to locate that entry and the main office close to that. The remodeled spaces in here, we're taking the office and creating some special needs areas, expanding storage for art. We need a couple of more 4K classrooms up here. Those are a little bit larger than your typical elementary classroom or other classrooms. So basically what's happening there is we're taking taking 4 classrooms and making 2 into them. And then you also see some additional space for kindergarten and 4K happening in this new addition up here. The other classrooms here are to accommodate that extra section of elementary school students. As we've talked about all along and it was talked about tonight, there is expansion possibilities to continue out to the east here and actually other areas of the building too. We don't want to close ourselves in and limit what we can do in the future in terms of being able to expand. Oh, almost forgot. It's not shown on your diagram and it didn't make it into the presentation either up here, but one of the accessibility issues that we are taking care of at Woodview is filling in the risers in the music area there to create that, take away those steps. They're actually kind of a hindrance for the music program right now. So those will come out. Special needs classrooms in here, which are currently half walls or short walls, would be made into full regular walls, enclosing those special needs classrooms. So on the site here, we're actually going to cover not only Woodview, but we're going to talk a little bit about John Long, in this case, John Long Middle School. As I alluded to before, starting up here with Woodview, you can see off of 5th Avenue, there's going to be created a new entry and allow traffic to loop around there and a new parking area up there. If anyone's been to Woodview before and after school, you know that it's kind of a mess. Trying to pick up students and the conflicts that they have with bus traffic. So the idea here is we separate those again, bringing parent drop-off and parking over here, still utilizing this for visitor and staff parking along the south area. But we're segregating the bus traffic back here between the two buildings, coming in off of 9th and circulating into the site, dropping off, and then coming back out the same way. So you can see we have kind of 3 distinct areas here, one for student and parent up here, one for student and parent down here where it currently exists for John Long, and then a separate one here behind for buses that would serve both buildings there. This paved play area would be redone. Obviously, if you've been out there and seen the cones and the crevices that are out there, you know that needs to be redone also. So that would be part of this. The green, again, you can see the addition. Again, the requirement for stormwater management is going to be included in this site. So the Woodview option budget that we talked about before, about $9.6 million, or we didn't talk about, but was on the previous slide. You can see that broken down here. Down here on John Long, you see a breakdown for that. Now, we don't have a diagram in this option for John Long because essentially all that we're doing, as you see by the budget, is a lot of maintenance and some minor remodeling. That minor remodeling mainly has to do with some of the ADA and other upgrades that have to happen here. So you don't see any sort of additions here. You don't see any site budget here. Any of this work is actually included in the site number up here under Woodview. So there's no building diagram for this particular option because the John Long Middle School inside is essentially functioning the same as it is currently. Okay? Moving on to the high school. The high school diagrams are broken down into kind of color blocks. And the reason that's done that way is the work that's denoted by these certain colors kind of has to travel together. In other words, we'll look at the blue areas here, for instance, for the tech ed, to address the tech ed needs, and actually that gets combined with addressing the fine arts needs in band and choir. So currently your shops for woods and metals exist here in this blue area. The auto shop exists out to the west of or east of the building here towards the parking lot. The plan is for this option is to create new spaces for the tech ed program out here to the west of the building, actually directly behind where the district administration offices are right now. And you can kind of see this outline here is where Grafton Elementary was in this option, would be taken down. So you have new spaces for autos, metals, woods. Associated with that are storage, classroom space for them, similar to what Carl has out in his shop right now with the classroom being adjacent to the shop. And then all the support spaces that go along with it in terms of equipment and tool storage, finishing areas. Toilet rooms happen out here, so they're not traveling back into the building. So when we build this new addition out here, this space over here where the current shops are become available for fine arts. So the auto shop, actually we just slap a new name on it and call it Scene Shop. The only thing we're really doing is building a little bit of a connection here to get back to the stage. Currently, for any sort of plays or drama that happens in the auditorium, you're creating sets and building sets on the stage. You're storing materials on the stage. That's not how we would typically see that done. You have a beautiful auditorium. It's just lacking kind of some of those support spaces. So the auto shops would become that scene shop and drama and fine art storage. Again, the risers in the band room are actually a hindrance. They're not accessible. So part of this is filling that in and updating the band room. And then what you see additionally here is creating some additional spaces for fine arts in the studio, ensemble rooms, practice and storage rooms. Music casework and music instrument storage that's in the band room right now would actually be moved out, and we would create a fine arts hallway between these two spaces here. The other thing that was alluded to about special needs, the cognitively disabled or ID spaces, living skills, that space would be relocated out here to the end with easy access from the parking lot, from the drop-off for those parents of those students to come right in the building, get their children and come back out here. So that's part of that remodeling. The other piece is in your current media center. Right now, the media center at the high school has a lot of space. It's currently on the west end of it is actually being used for computer lab right now. So the idea is originally we had a fabrication lab or a fab lab shown out here as part of the Tech Ed edition. But one of the steps that administration and the committee took was it made sense to pull some of that back in here, utilize some of that space for that fab lab. It's a clean technology. You're working with 3D printers, those kind of things that don't really need a shop space. So the idea is to remodel part of the media center to accommodate that, along with some collaboration spaces that need to be opened up and actually currently exist along the south side of the media center here. So you can see these colors, they kind of have to travel together. So when you do this, you can do that, and it kind of follows one after the other. So that's the Tech Ed part of it. Right above this is the kitchen. The red is kitchen and receiving. Again, we talked about currently all your meals for the entire district are produced at Grafton Elementary School in a tiny little kitchen. That would be changed in this case. The high school would become the production facility. So they're not only producing and serving meals for the high school students, but they're producing meals for the rest of the buildings in the district. So the production kitchen and serving happens right here. We remodel this existing kitchen into a commons cafe area and some additional spaces, and then we're immediately adjacent to the receiving area, so meals and ingredients and food stuff can be brought directly in and out of the building via that voting dock and receiving area in the back. So that's the red piece of it. The kind of hard to see up here, but light tan, kind of grayish, is currently the high school offices are located right here. There is no secure entry. It's somewhat difficult to reconfigure this. It can be done to create a secure entry, but the thought is most people enter the high school site actually from the east end of the building anyways. Traffic on 60 in Washington forces you around to come back in that way by the water tower. So the thought here is to actually relocate the main entry of the building, relocate the offices closer to the commons, closer to where the parking and that drop-off is. So a small little addition here of a secure lobby, but taking some of those spaces that are currently art and computer for tech ed, remodeling those into the main high school office area here. These spaces that are currently the high school offices will become classrooms in this case. The purple here is strictly just locker rooms remodeling. The high school locker rooms are, they're in pretty tough shape, and additionally they're kind of broken up into a lot of kind of compartmentalized rooms. So this actually takes a look at expanding just a little bit into the commons, but then reconfiguring those to better serve not only athletics but PE and pool functions. So that's all remodeling existing space for the locker rooms. The gold or the yellow information that's seen up here, essentially you saw before that there was a 3-station gym proposed on the north end of the building here. That's been pulled back to just a 1-station gym, and when I say 1 station, it's basically seating for about 150 to 250 spectators. It's 1 performance court or 1 basketball-sized court happening within that facility. Now, the configuration may look a little bit odd, and when we get to the site plan, it'll kind of become more evident. But the thought is if you ever did need to expand your phy-ed or athletic space for the gymnasium, it would actually go out to the east here. So we would do this in such a way that this wall could come down and the gymnasium would be expanded that way. But for this initial step, we have just the gymnasium, some storage, and toilet rooms that are associated with that. Also part of that, the existing weight room would be actually moved into the current multi-purpose room. The multi-purpose room can actually be pretty easily changed with, probably just the addition of a rubber flooring for the weight and fitness areas. So expanding that to allow you to do cardio and weight in the same room. The current weight room would just be taken over by either wrestling, or it came up last night. It could be dance or some other activities that need a space more like what's out here. Dance is currently happening in the commons right now, so providing some additional space for functions like that. And then lastly, just this little teeny piece down here is a small addition that would be family locker rooms for the pool. One of the challenges for community members and family members that want to use the pool right now is you have to use the high school PE or athletic locker rooms. The thought here is to provide some small changing areas and small locker areas that families that come in either before, after, or possibly during school could utilize those facilities, lock up their clothes and belongings, and then exit directly into the pool deck, do what they want to do, and then come out right here without having to go into the high school locker rooms. Family locker rooms are actually something that's pretty typical now with aquatic centers. It's just one of those amenities that's included now. Lastly, on the high school site here, you see on the second floor up in the right-hand corner here, as Jeff talked about, the science facilities here were built in 1971. They haven't really changed much since then. So all these green areas are currently science areas with the exception of down here. We're expanding and reconfiguring those and remodeling those to not only accommodate your current science programs, but also the aforementioned Project Lead the Way, which is a great program for this district that's dealing with health sciences. So that remodeling would happen up on the second floor. The site that we're looking at here, just to touch briefly on, again, here's a summary for the Grafton High School elements of this project. That's about $20.6 million. Down below here on the site diagram, you see a couple of other stragglers that didn't make it into any other place that are included in this proposal. So down at the bottom, you see that district maintenance facility that we talked about. That's a budget of about $577,000, including any site costs and paving that are associated with the building construction itself. You see that district office. The one thing I didn't touch on is you see in this diagram here, the district offices stay exactly where they are. We're taking down Grafton Elementary around that, and district offices would not move. They would just stay there in their current location in this option. So you see there is some maintenance items for the district office that need to happen, about $500,000 for that. And then up here, you see the cost that it actually takes to demolish or deconstruct Grafton Elementary School and then to reclaim the site there. In other words, the reclaiming the site here is not only filling it in, but also in this case, providing some additional parking that is kind of out here right now, but would be, I think, beneficially located closer not only to the high school, but also to your athletic facilities. Those are not moving in this case. So this brings a large amount of parking a lot closer to your football field and your other fields here. Behind the facility, or to the north here, there's some paved play area, or I'm sorry, paved area for the tech ed program. One of the challenges that you have right now are not only Carl trying to store vehicles out here kind of right in the parking lot area, but also your wood shop is inboard. It's internal to the building. There's no outside access to it. There's no ability for you to run construction programs where they might want to do some sort of projects or construction outside. Having a setup like this where the overhead doors and the access are on the back of the building here, and there's an area for that to happen out back, allows that and facilitates that a lot better. Main entry that we were talking about before, district entry stays where it is, and here you see what I was alluding to before about here's the new gym, but you'd still have space to add on 2 more stations there without getting into the hill and without cutting down trees here. That has come up and has been talked about, I think, frequently. The village did change that policy and how they look at the forestry restrictions, which is, I think, a good thing for the school district. But the committee also heard that there were several advocates for not cutting down those trees just because they wanted to keep the trees. So what we tried to do is avoid that as much as possible, keeping everything to the west of the school forest here and showing you how we could actually do that without destroying that area. So that's the 3-campus option. The 2-campus option, again, set up kind of the same way. Here again, we're looking at Grafton Elementary being deconstructed and providing expansion space. This is obviously needed, as you'll see in a minute, for us to put the middle school on the site. Kennedy Elementary actually, in this case, becomes remodeled for district administration. So a budget number is in there to do that, to remodel about 7,100 square feet to do that. This is one of those tough things that the committee is struggling with yet, and I'm sure would love some feedback tonight from everyone. It's tough to look at what happens to Kennedy in this option because it's no longer being used as an elementary school. So one of the thoughts was that we take some of that space and utilize it for district administration, which in this case was going to have to be relocated from its current location at the high school. Woodview Elementary, in this case, would become Woodview Primary. So that means all early childhood through kindergarten students in the entire district would go to the Woodview facility. Along with that, in this option, John Long Middle School, which currently houses 6th through 8th, would be John Long Elementary, or whichever elementary you want to name it, but that would house all 1st through 5th grades for the entire district. So you probably thought of it already, but that means all the elementary school district or elementary school students in the district are on this site right here that we're on tonight. Lastly, in this option, Grafton High School actually becomes Grafton Middle High School, as Jeff said earlier, moving 6th grade in addition to the 7th and 8th grade that we talked about in the last referendum to make this a 6th through 12 facility. Again, new district maintenance building would have to be included as Grafton Elementary is taken down. So there's no Kennedy diagram. The thought is that there would just be whatever space is appropriate, most likely up front where the current offices are. That would be remodeled for the district offices. The rest would be maintained and repaired as needed. For Woodview School here, since we're talking about primary school students, the need for an additional gym space or multi-purpose space for the school functions actually goes down, just because of they're not participating in PE activities as much as the upper elementary school students would. So the existing multi-purpose room fills those needs. The only addition that we're talking about here are some early childhood classrooms that would be brought on. But you see a lot of remodeling here, basically, like we looked at the last option, taking 4 classrooms and making them into those larger kindergarten classrooms. It's a relatively minor remodel in itself, other than bringing toilet rooms and storage and some of the support facilities in there for those. The office would get remodeled where it is. It basically is a flip-flop, so the reception area and principal offices flip. So you have direct access from the vestibule into the office itself, so that provides you secure entry. Again, we're talking about special needs, building in those walls that are currently half walls. This one actually does show filling in the music, similar to what we talked about for the 3-campus option, filling in the risers there, and just remodeling throughout to create that facility. Here is our John Long Middle School, currently John Long Middle School becoming elementary school diagram. No additions that we're talking about. Essentially, it's all remodeling within the school. Music basically stays as it is. Gymnasiums stay as they are. Most of the classrooms stay as they are. What we are doing are taking things like the tech ed classrooms in the upper left here and turning those into regular classrooms. Science classrooms, which are here and over here, are being turned into regular classrooms and special needs areas. We have to, because of the number of students here and how often they go to the specials, that's why we have 2 music rooms. We have to create 2 art rooms. So the additional, the adjacent space here would become an art room. Some of those special need offices that we're talking about would happen in some of the locker room space and in the family and consumer ed space. Probably the kind of most significant change here would be the additional space for kitchen. This came about in our review of these options with administration and your food service director. The commons actually here in John Long works great. It houses all the students you need. The problem is the kitchen is really tiny, and when we talk about bringing all the 1st through 5th graders through here, it really isn't adequate to do that. So we're expanding the kitchen in this space, actually taking some of the common space, expanding that kitchen, and then creating some space for an additional serving line to get the kids through there, get them into the cafeteria and eating instead of waiting to get through that line. The site looks very similar to the site in the 3-campus option. The only thing that's really changing here is you see the budgets again were updated, and then the extent of the additions here at Woodview would change. Site circulation and what we're doing with the bus drop-off and the parking up here at Woodview are the same that we talked about before. So lastly, Grafton High School in this option. This would become Grafton Middle School, High School. So the gymnasium, let's start up here. The gymnasium portion of this, you see, we actually go from that 1-station gym to a 3-station gym, or 3 courts. The reason being is the existing gym would become middle school gym. This would actually become high school gym. When we have all the 6th through 12th graders here, there's just no way we can make this work with PE and athletics and activities without having that additional gymnasium space. So that's shown. The family locker rooms in this case for the pool are actually shown up here along with additional toilet space. But we're talking about the same swap of the weight room and the multi-purpose room that we were talking about in the last option. Locker room remodeling stays the same for this. The only difference here with locker rooms is there's actually the addition of middle school locker rooms right here for the middle school gym. Food service looks a little bit different, the kitchen looks a little bit different, but the intent here is this, again, would still be production kitchen for the entire district, but now we actually have 2 serving lines, one over here for high school, one over here for the middle school commons. So there are actually 2 different commons in this option, one for high school, one for middle school. Tech ed, the blue areas, again, we're talking about the same functions that we were talking about last time in this remodeling. The only addition or difference here is it looks a little different, but you see now that fab lab or that fabrication lab space being built as new construction here. The reason being is the media center in this option would be shared. There's just, again, no way that we want to take that space away from media center to put that in here with all the 6th through 12th grade students. So they also need it because middle school students are taking tech ed, so they need some additional space to make that program work too. So you see that addition is a little bit different than what was in the 3-campus option. We're still talking about relocating the offices and the entry up here, but in this case, we actually need those art spaces in this option for the middle school students, so those remain, and we do all the high school office in a new addition. And the existing high school office gets remodeled. And then the other thing just to point out, so everyone is aware, in addition to art, music, media center, all of those in tech ed would be shared by the 6th through 12th grade, or by the middle school and the high school students. We're not creating the separate art facilities anymore. We're not creating the separate music facilities anymore. Lastly, the orange part up here is actually a 2-story addition. You can see on the 2nd floor plan there. All of the orange here is middle school. Classroom, science classroom, special needs. It has its own middle school entry here. Just a little bit kind of on why it's looking like it is. We went through several variations of this, mainly because what becomes a challenge here is the phasing of this. As we look at trying to build this facility, we can't take Grafton Elementary down until we have a place to put those students. And in this option, the only place to actually put those students is in the middle school when that's done. So what we looked at is, is there a way that we can build it around Grafton Elementary without disrupting it at all? And that became very difficult. The design looked really strung out here in the front, and it didn't really work well. So we went back and looked at it again, and came to the idea that we have right now, where Grafton Elementary has one little piece of it that was built in 1964 at the same time as the district office. It basically enclosed that courtyard, so kind of the northeast side, or right behind the district office around the corner. That was built as an addition to enclose that courtyard. The idea here is we'd actually take that 1964 addition down. Now what that means is the 6 classrooms that are in there right now would have to be housed in portable classrooms for approximately the duration of the construction, which would be 2 years. So the budgets that you see here actually include the rental and installation of those portable classrooms. And one of the things that came up last night is just, what do those things even look like? They're built in place. They have their own toilet facilities. There's plumbing out to them. There's electricity obviously out to them. And then they wouldn't be kind of placed way on the back of the site. They would be placed in a safe location close to Grafton Elementary that would allow it to have a connection back into the school, albeit a temporary connection, but it's not like they're going to be isolated. So they're pretty decent units. Some districts have been known to use them for 20-some years, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way that's allowing us to take down a portion of that building, which is kind of right here, and build this entire addition without significantly impacting the day-to-day school lives here. So that's how the phasing would actually work on this one as this one is built. So the second story, we talked about you'd have middle school here, and the expansion on this one is actually, we would build this, you can see it's kind of a blank area up here. We would build this so another wing like this could be added up here on the 2nd floor without much difficulty if expansion ever needed to happen here for middle school. Again, we're still talking about the same type of science remodeling that we did in the 3-campus option. So this looks a little bit different than what was before. You can see now we've filled in that area for the 3-station gym. The entry's still down here. You can see tech ed, that area looks a little bit different, but we still have our middle school entry over here with the proposed addition. Parking looks essentially the same. The only thing that really happens differently for the site here is there is a flow through for bus drop off along Washington here, and that's allowing, again, to try and allow us to separate, the bus traffic from the student traffic. So here are the other budget items that aren't covered anywhere else. Grafton Elementary, again, the demolition costs. The district office, you see the budget to relocate that to Kennedy. The demolition of that little piece, and then the cost to remodel Kennedy, and then again, that district maintenance facility. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Topher to talk about finances.
Thank you. All right, tonight I'll briefly walk us through the financing and tax impact of a $47.3 million referendum. This is the number, once upon a time, the cost of the 3-campus option. So a little over a week ago, we sent this off to Baird so they could run the numbers for us so we could have that to present tonight so we could get your feedback. Since then, there have been plan adjustments and budget adjustments that have brought it down to about $45 million. So in this example, we would issue debt in 3 phases, $27.3 million in 2017, followed by $10 million in each of the subsequent years. Now this debt would be paid off by 2039. The interest rate used in this example is 4.25%. If we took these loans out today, if we borrowed $27.3 million today, the interest rate would be about 3%. If we borrowed $10 million today, the interest rate would be about 2.5%. What Baird has basically worked into this example is the potential for rates to increase between now and when we would actually issue the debt. Finally, like any loan, there are going to be interest payments. So with the principal being $47.3 million, the interest payments come to a total of $26.3 million in this example. So on this page, you see the impact of our referendum debt. In blue, you see what our current debt impact is. So you see in 2017, we've got a $1.36 impact for current payments. And you'll notice a large drop off for 2018. That drops down to 63 cents and continues on through 2021 until it completely drops off in 2022. Then in green, you'll see the new debt. So on a $47.3 million referendum, what you'd have in 2018 is instead of a 73-cent drop in the tax impact, you'd see a 99-cent increase. And that would continue on until 2022 when the old debt dropped off and the new debt would have an impact of $2.34. Now included in this are the principal payments, the interest payments, and also the loss of state aid. So Baird basically took into account the fact that we lose state aid when we increase spending. So increased debt payments means loss of state aid and pressure on the property tax levy. So they built into this impact both principal and interest payments as well as our loss of state aid. And then you'll notice that down along here, it does drop somewhat. Baird used the assumption that property tax values in the district would increase about 1% per year. So the payments and the cost dollar-wise are the same, but the impact on property value would decrease slightly over time. So on the next slide, I'm going to present what this means in terms of your tax bill for next year and moving forward. And so what I'll present, what I'll show you is both current debt and how that would be a decrease on their property tax bill, as well as the impact of the new debt that would come online next year, and then what the net increase would be as well. So I've got 3 examples up here. I'll run through the $150,000 home example. So like I mentioned, that current debt right here would be dropping fairly significantly next year. That will mean a decrease on the property tax bill of over $109. Then with the new debt coming on, that would raise it back up $259. Those two together mean that your property tax bill next year, if you've got a home worth $150,000, would increase $148.50 because of the debt levy. And if you escrow monthly, you're looking at another $12.38 per month. So that's the tax impact right there.
So we've had you sitting for a long time, and we've given you a lot of information. And really the idea of tonight is to present the information to you and then have an opportunity for you to share comments with us, to ask questions to us. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's why we give you the form, or you think of questions later in that sense. But our committee is looking at, we've had a number of options that we've looked at. We've narrowed it down to these 2 options, and we're looking for feedback from the community for the committee to be able to take that feedback and then be able to try and come up with what one option should we make a recommendation to the school board for. Realizing the school board has the final authority for what that would look like. So we may make a recommendation that has, it was 47.3 a week ago, now it's down to 44.9. We have other things that we think we may be able to cut. We don't know, that's part of the committee's decision, but the board may say yes or no to that in that sense. So the committee just makes a recommendation, the board has the final decision-making power for that. So our goal is to hear from you tonight. So I love the fact that you want to go first. That would be awesome. So if you have a question, we'll have either Paul or Jody or Topher or myself that can answer your questions, or hopefully, or say we can find the answer later. But if you would speak in the mic, it is hardwired into the video camera so people can hear it that we're recording for later.
Okay. I voted against the referendum the first time. I'm going to be really honest. I'm going to work my ass off so this will fail. I have a couple questions for you. There are school districts like New Berlin, which never goes to a referendum because they've already, as a business has to, budget for repairs. Grafton never has. You gave us, now we can put up into $1 million. Why the hell did it take so long? That's number one. Number two, we have Act 10. I do not see this school board taking full advantage of Act 10. In the private sector, people are paying for the basic health insurance plan between 25 and 50% of their plan. How much are the teachers and administration paying? Are they paying at least 25%? Really, they should be paying 33%. That's number one. Number two, we're seeing Unified just passed that if your spouse, be it a husband or a wife, has health insurance offered through their company, they are now required to take it, and the school district is not going to cover the spouse. They would just pick up the, I think they said just the deductible. Speaking of deductible, there's a lot of money out there that you're not tapping into. Another thing, have we gone, like the private sector, from pensions to 401ks? If we haven't, we need to. The gravy train ends. It ended with Act 10. I'm looking at what you all want to do. It sounds really good. We got, the poor kids, they can't learn in these old buildings. Yet, you said some school districts have these temporary buildings, which I've seen for years. Are you proposing, are we getting the best? Does it have to be, the Cadillac? How can you cut back? Do they need fancy painting on the walls? You know, I hear this about the school bus thing. I used to drive school bus up in the Grafton district. I can tell you right now, no matter how much you change it, it's not going to work. Parents are parents, they don't care, they'll cut in front of you. School bus drivers, they learn how to deal with that. So that doesn't impress me at all. I drove bus for 10 years, so that doesn't impress me at all. I want to know where you're going to cut spending so that you don't have to go to $47 million. This is ridiculous. The only thing I saw on there that made sense that you could expand is the tech program. Because we all know industry is crying for welders and electricians and plumbers. Going to college is not all. I have a college degree. People who work in the trades make more money than I do. But yet we've always, you know, Grafton does have a tech program like Homestead and that don't. That I can see expanding because that's where it needs to go. But some of this other stuff, and another thing, lunches. A lot of schools are now, instead of expanding the kitchen, contract out with catering companies and have the food cooked and just brought in. You don't have to do the kitchen thing. I mean, these are all little things I'm sitting here thinking, you know, other school districts, other industries are going that way. Why are we good? And if you do that, you don't have to pay cooks, you don't have to have the special insurance, you don't have to have special everything when you have a kitchen. I've worked food service industry. I know what you all need. When you have a kitchen like that, your insurance goes out, that equipment is not cheap, it has to be maintained. You have people, you're paying health insurance, you're paying pension, you're paying salaries, where you could contract it out for less. Why aren't you looking at that option? Because I know it's less. Those are my questions.
Well, Jeff, I'll take some of those if you want, if you don't mind.
I'll
Well,
jump
certainly,
in on
thank
others.
you very much for coming tonight, and thank you for sharing that information. A couple of things, and I just got to make a mental note that I remember all of them. As to Act 10, yes, we've adopted the measures of Act 10. Teachers do participate, and staff, all of district staff participates in sharing with the health insurance. No, it's not as high as 33%. It ranges from, I think it's 8% to 18%, depending on the plan
That's a joke.
the plan that you select. You're
That
entitled
is
to
a
your
joke.
opinion,
That's a
yes.
slap in the face to
It-
everybody in the private industry that's paying more.
Let me finish. Our health insurance costs prior to Act 10 were just over $5 million. We've cut them now down to just over $3 million. So we have saved $2 million since the passage of Act 10.
We can save more.
Absolutely, we can save more, but we need to maintain a reasonable benefit package for the staff that is employed here because we want good staff, and we want to keep good staff. As it relates to pension plans, the teachers, as a part of Act 10, participate in their share of the pension plan. Their pension is state provided, but we do contribute to that. So there isn't a 401k
How
plan.
how much is their contribution to it? How much is the percent?
6.8%.
That to me is a joke. That's a slap in my face.
You're entitled to your opinion. I understand that, and I appreciate
compared
that.
to private industry, it's still not, there's still things that can be, there's money there that you're not taking advantage of. And you know what?
And-
If the teachers don't like it, colleges
let-
are graduating teachers like crazy. There's the door, don't let it
So
hit
let
you
me
on
just
the way
let me
out.
just finish addressing some of your other issues as it relates to the ability to finance end-of-life situations for particular systems. So the maintenance budget, the money just isn't there. I've studied New Berlin. I've taken a look at New Berlin. New Berlin typically over levies, or they levy to the max, but they don't spend that amount. So the money that they're putting into their fund balance, which is how they are funding those additions, are coming from the tax levy. You know, they're just not coming by virtue of referendum. And you can take a look at their financial statements. They're published online. You can take a look at their annual reports. They're published online. That money is coming from tax levy. It's not coming by way of a referendum. Because I've taken a look at their financial statements and how they do it. But I would encourage you to do that. Over the years, we have been budgeting for maintenance items. The maintenance budget has grown. I think it's in excess of $1 million a year. As I alluded to earlier, we've spent $3.5 million in the last 4 years to address the most pressing issues. There just isn't enough money by virtue of how school districts are funded and financed to take care of building new buildings in any one year from operating funds. That's why we need to look at facilities assessments over a period of time, and we need to go to referendum. And of course, you know, everyone is entitled to review the options that are presented and make the decision that they're most comfortable with.
The only thing we didn't talk about was the kitchen workers, and we have not looked at that because at the point where we look at is there a cost savings, and at this point we don't believe there is. We've already done that with our maintenance staff, or we've contracted that out as a savings, and I think that's in the excess of $130,000 a year that we've contracted out. Some of that, there is some issues that come with that, because then you don't have people that are connected to your district. They don't have that loyalty. They're working for somebody else. They aren't working for us. So there's an issue that goes with that. But we have looked at a lot of different ways in this district to save money and to put us into a spot where long-term, one of the options that's on the table is reducing our buildings from 5 to 4, which would save us in excess of $200,000 off the top in personnel costs, which then long-term sets us up for financial success and providing what we need for our students. So
It is true.
we are looking at a lot of those pieces, and I think, like, if you have other comments that you'd like to make sure that we look at, I think it'd be great to write those or put them on the online, and we can make sure that the committee gets those as well.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? You can come on up. You don't have to raise your hand if you want to just go on up to the mic. That would be awesome.
Thank you. It's Scott Orton from the town of Grafton. I voted for the last referendum, and I'll vote for this referendum, but not the 3 campus. I'll vote for the 2 campus, and that's the one I hope that gets established. I do have several things. First off, this young lady was talking about teachers' pay. How many of our teachers in the last 3 years have left to take better jobs? Want to answer that before I get on with my other questions? Okay, that's how many have. Let's answer the first question.
I don't know the answer to that.
There have been several, though, isn't that
but there
true?
have been. In being new, we don't. I'd hate to quote a number that's incorrect, but there have been others that have left. In my time here, and since starting in July, we lost multiple people who did move to other places for more money.
Okay. As I understand it, all of the new additions will be ADA compliant.
That's correct.
Is that true?
Yes, sir.
On the renovations, are you going to be doing some ADA renovations there too?
Yes, we are.
These buildings, as the young lady said, are we building homestead schools, or are we building everybody else's schools? So how many years are these option A and option B being built for? They're going to last 25 years, 30 years, 50 years? Or isn't that a viable question?
Barring any programmatic changes, the physical buildings themselves should be 30 years with good maintenance and well into 50 years. We're not building cheap construction that's going to fall apart in 10 years. So the investment has to at least outlast the investment that the district is making.
Well, we probably use a lot of these metal chairs. Is that counting the 20 and 30 years for all these metal chairs too, or are the insides going to have to be replaced before that?
Furnishings there's budgets in there for furnishings,
Okay.
but furniture does wear out with use.
Now, as I understand, when he had the financing up here, when I add up the interest and the loan money, it's almost $70 million. Is that true?
Correct.
That's a lot of money. I know I won't be around for it, and I don't know how many of these people in the room here are going to be around for it, but we'd be spending a lot of money over 20-some years. Correct?
Yep, those numbers are correct, yeah.
Now, and that option that you had up there, was that the 3 campus or the 2 campus?
Well, that was actually neither right now. That's 47.3 million. Right now, the 3 campus option is about 45 million.
Okay.
That was just an example so that we could have something to present to get some feedback tonight.
And we put that up there so that it's similar to when you buy your house, if you buy a car and you don't pay cash.
Yeah, I
if you
understand
look
that.
at what the interest rate is over the course of that loan,
Yeah.
what we're bringing back here is we're looking at a 20-year loan. So previously those 24-year loans. We're looking at a 20-year loan, and that's assuming that interest rates, they've built in that interest rate so that it is a fair number as well. So we're not sort of overselling it to you, and then we're really under delivering at the end. So that's assuming that we don't pay down debt early. All those pieces, that's what it is. But it's an honest number, just like when we buy anything else, unless we pay for
Yeah,
cash.
and using that interest rate, that's a good interest rate to take for the 20 years, because we don't know what's going to happen. But
It's really good right now. You're right. It's really good right now. But what will it be?
Right.
You're-
Being positive about it is better than saying, oh no, we're going to have
Yes, sir.
point
We
and a
would
half
agree
for
with
the
that.
next 20 years.
Yep.
Thank
we
you.
agree with that. Thank you. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Or sir.
All right, I'm Nancy Knitter. I had 14 kids that graduated from the Grafton School System. Well, I just want to say this business about Act 10 that she mentioned. My daughter's a teacher, Peshtigo High School.
Ma'am?
She has lost a lot
Can I
of
ask you to
money.
speak into it? Because last night people didn't speak into it and we had a hard time hearing it on the
Well, I
thing.
can't hear it when you're talking on that, so I don't know if you can hear me or not. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, so Act 10 has done a terrible thing for teachers, number one. Act 10 has also done an awful lot of things that are not good for construction workers, for all kinds of people who worked in the union. But I think the one thing I want to ask here about this, what about the charter schools that are all over? They're getting all kinds of money from the state of Wisconsin. They're going belly up. They already got our money, but hey, that was private stuff, you know. This is our own community, and we need to support it. Maybe we can cut back on places, but doggone it. One of the things I wanted to say was, do we have something for home economics in the school? Gosh darn it, not everybody can come home at noon like my son Jack, who works at a village, and eat lunch by Ma. You know, some of them, they have to go to college and make their own food. I thought it'd be nice if there was some kind of home economics thing in this plan, but I guess there's not. And I also wondered if this if referendum would go through. Do you think that we're going to have union labor doing this or not? I know there are people here who absolutely hate that when people do get benefits and do get decent wages and do get some pensions at the end of their work life when their whole body is shot because they work so gosh darn hard, because I'm married to one of those guys, you know. And all my kids, they learn how to work with their hands. This is wonderful that these Carl Hader up there teaching kids how to do mechanics, guys who learn how to work with carpentry. We need guys to learn how to do masonry. Work with your hands. There's pride in that, for gosh darn sakes. You don't always have to have a little machine there. You maybe need a trowel, or maybe you need a chainsaw. That's all I got to say, but gosh darn it, our kids in this school district and our teachers deserve to be represented by good, common people who just really want the right thing for our kids in this school. God bless you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name's Don Schultz. I live at 419 9th Avenue, right down the road, in fact, here. I really don't have any questions, but I got a few comments. I have seen a lot of school districts attempt to pass referendums. I never vote for a referendum, and there's reasons why I never do. One of the biggest reasons why I don't is because if a referendum gets passed, it seems to give the school district the okay to raise taxes whenever they damn well feel like it, because they know they have the community out there as their personal bank.
I agree.
Anyway, there's a few things that I noticed when you were talking here. You were talking about some of the needs. One of the things that you had mentioned was you had already completed some of the maintenance projects that you had needed through your regular budget. You need to do that with all your maintenance projects. That seems to be the pressing need here. But there are a lot of wants. Oh, I want this. I want that. I want an addition to this school. I want an addition to that school. It's all a want. Live within your means. These people work hard for their money. And it is not an investment, like somebody had said here. It is an expenditure. An expenditure that comes out of the taxpayer's wallet. My last thing I want to tell you guys up there is you're all full of crap.
Just to be clear, though, of the $3.5 million that were funded, 1.8 million was borrowed, $1 million, and the balance came out of the operating budget. I mean, there just isn't enough in the operating budget each year to build additions to gyms or facilities.
Then I guess we don't need them.
My name is Dick Best. I live in the town of Grafton. I've lived in Grafton for about 40-some years. I went to a city high school. I'm one of those city guys that actually moved out here. I spent more time in Grafton than I did in the city. I have two sons who were graduates of Grafton High School. Carl Hader and Barney Klaus and many other people that some of you know helped them through an awful lot. I had one who, if he went to Nicolay High School, would have been in bad shape because Nicolay High School doesn't treat all the schools, kids, the way that they should be treating. They were preparing kids for college. Grafton prepares kids for life. And that's a gift that this school district has provided for my family for a long time. My oldest son is 44. My youngest son is 43. And yes, they went to school with a Kinetter. Everybody did. So what I'm basically asking you is, over the time that a referendum is paid for, how does that affect the resale value of houses, let's say in a 5 to 10 year time period? Is there a net opportunity gain for resale, or is there a net loss because of the amount of money paid toward the referendum? That's the first question. Second question, what happens if you own a home in a school district where you do not pass referendums and you let the facilities go to hell? That would be the first part of my question.
So we don't have hard data that would your first question, and we had this discussion because I've had realtors in the area reach out to me saying, would you like some articles, would you like some statistics? And we tried not to use statistics to sort of confuse the picture, but could we get you that information? Yes, we could. The second part of your question is one, if the school system starts struggling, what will happen if you have multiple failed referendums? Well, whether you can make a direct correlation, or that might be up for argument, but you can definitely make a correlation between the fact that we had more students leave our district last year through open enrollment than we had enter our district through open enrollment for the first time in 5 years. And I look back 5 years, but looking back over 5 years. So we were positively increasing the last 2 years with our total student population, and this year we're down 56 students. So if you when you look at districts that continue to struggle to pass referendums, that have schools that aren't meeting the needs of their families, then you have families that value their children, they love their kids, and they're going to move to a school district that will provide for their kids the education that they believe their kids deserve, which then causes the person trying to sell to hopefully find someone to buy, but they're definitely leaving, or they're going to stay and they're going to open enroll somewhere else, which is what we saw here.
Okay. So basically, there's a positive spin on moving forward and a negative spin so far on moving backward.
We can see that already. Yes, sir.
Okay. The second part that I would like to add is the fact that in this particular school district, we've had an awful lot of people that have stayed a long time. And part of the reason why they've stayed a long time is because it's stable family situations. They have kids that have been here for longer periods of time. Is it tougher to retain and hire new staff with declining facilities than the New Berlins or the Oconomowocs or the Beaver Dams of the world that seem to be growing schools left and right? Do facilities allow for a difficult time in hiring personnel that you need to staff your facility?
Yes, and I would say earlier there's a comment about colleges graduating teachers left and right, and that was true. That isn't true anymore. We don't get the number of people applying for the teaching jobs that we used to get, whether that's in Grafton. I spent 7 years in Cedarburg. I spent 2 years in West Dallas. I spent 3 years in Franklin. Those days have come and gone. So you aren't seeing the number. So what has happened is it's become a market whereby it is a free agent. Teachers used to go somewhere and they would stay and be in that spot, just as it used to be in other industries as well. I'd go somewhere and I was a lifetime employee. That doesn't happen anymore. And so there are many factors that go into why do teachers stay where they are. One of the issues is obviously a culture of a building, culture of a district, how they're treated with respect by administration, by parents, by the community. But obviously the facilities and what I have to work with is also going to be a piece of what causes them to stay or causes them to leave. And I would say it goes hand in hand with support. And that's where the facilities probably comes in with support from the community, from administration, from parents in that sense, that makes them feel fulfilled, which is why they went into education, was to help people.
As a longtime resident of Grafton, I will definitely support this referendum.
Thank you.
My name's Tim Moreau. I live in the village of Grafton. I was looking at the costs, and it looks like the majority of costs are additions. And I see that there's no net change in the amount of classrooms that we're providing for, and there's probably only a small increase in the net square footage available. Yet we've built on and built on and built on because of eliminating Grafton Elementary. I hear that Grafton Elementary is expensive to bring up to par with current standards, but if it were to be rebuilt and without reconfiguring the entire district, could we just renovate and keep our costs low by eliminating so much of the addition cost?
Yeah, I'll start. Yes, it's one of the things that the board looked at early on. What's the cost of renovating Grafton Elementary? And that absolutely can be done. As I think was mentioned earlier, the costs to renovate are going to be pretty close to actually what it would be to build a new school. That aside, one of the things that the committee identified very early was they wanted to gain some efficiencies in the school's operations by eliminating facilities. You have 3 small elementaries right now with the 2 sections, and there's good things to that and there's bad things to that. So one of the drivers that was covered earlier was to reduce the number of facilities that the district has to run, take care of, and house with staff. So it's absolutely an option. It's actually an option that the committee looked at too, but they eliminated it fairly early because of that goal of reducing the number of buildings.
And there's no efficiencies that come along with having an elementary school attached to a high school.
So there's a lot of discussion about facility costs. It's a very facility-centric presentation, but there's other costs that are at play here. Is there anywhere we can hear about those costs?
Such as
Example.
operating costs? Or,
What do you mean?
Yeah, you're talking about reduced operating costs because of facility consolidation?
Well, moving down to eliminating one facility, of course, will eliminate the administrative staff associated with that. So there's a principal, there is administrative assistant. So that staff would be eliminated because we have one less building. So that would free up money in the operating budget for maintenance items or other things that we need. We do believe that new facilities and new structures and new systems within those facilities and structures will be more energy efficient. They'll lead to savings. We haven't gotten into studying at this point what those savings might be until we narrow down an option. It would be difficult to do that, but certainly there should be savings in there.
Yeah, and right now, because there's 2 options, so a lot of those pieces that you're asking specifically, once the committee makes recognition to the board and if the board moves forward with one option, then we'll run those pieces. How much is there savings with busing? We know that right now with 3 elementary schools, because we run shuttles, because certain grade levels are full, and so even if you move into Woodview and you're in first grade is full, so that means we're going to shuttle you to Kennedy or we're going to shuttle you to GES. So we know we spend $60,000 a year shuttling elementary students from one school to another because it's full at that grade level. So, but with looking at the 2 options, we need to get it down to 1 so that we can see, okay, well, are there still some shuttle costs that would occur? So you can't say that we're going to cut $60,000 because it depends on which option we're looking at and how that would flesh out in that sense. Because if all elementary students are here, there would be no shuttling that would be going on.
It's very hard to see from the proposal how this expenditure is going to increase the level of service in the community by its amount. It looks like a lot of this could be accomplished at half or a third the price. And that's all I can see from what I'm seeing. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Rao. I have 3 children in the district. Just a couple questions, hoping to help the committee. We currently have a bubble class at GES, so there's actually 3 sections, I believe, of 2. So I'm wondering where in the proposal is there room for extra students? Also, one of the huge reasons I moved here 5 years ago, my realtor said that this district was outstanding, and I agree, but I believe it's because of the staff and what we provide here. I'm just wondering, will the class sizes stay small? Because that I did compare Cedarburg, we compared Port Washington, I visited schools all around the area, actually went to Kennedy. The staff there was amazing, and why we chose this community is because those numbers. So I'm just curious, there's no extra classroom in any of the proposals. And something else, I am a part-time staff with no benefits and a mom, so I volunteer a lot because the staff has decreased so much. We used to have full-time reading interventionists, we used to have lots of help. These students are going to be your next doctors, your next everybody in your communities. So they're important from 4-year-olds all the way to high school. This plan includes everybody. But as a staff member, we have 2 bathrooms. Sorry, but that's something else I noticed. And every time I go to the bathroom, because I only have this much time, I have 2 minutes before my students come, they're always locked. Sorry, but your plan doesn't include more bathrooms, but there's more staff. So, just another.
I think it does include more bathrooms at Kennedy. There's
Okay.
more toilets that.
I saw that, but usually we don't use, the staff does not use the children. We have to use our own, obviously. So, but
Okay.
maybe I missed it.
But and
Point it out
that'd be
to
a
me.
great comment. No, that'd be a great comment to give us. That's a good thing for us to confirm with that. The question was asked last night about class size, and tonight I actually have the data that would have helped me as I was struggling. I was talking to Stephen about this earlier. I could have used it last night. So we know that there are bubble classes, and there's 2 bubble classes. We also know that there's a couple classes that are a little smaller. So you do, in 5K we have 144 students. In first grade we have 113. In second grade we have 149. So even if we only had 6, if we had 6 sections, we're building a 6-section by each grade level, then we're evening that out to, even at a bubble, if you only stayed with 6, you're at 24.8. Okay, so and by having smaller, by not having a bubble later, you're having more space because you aren't going to need 6 with 113 students. So there are classrooms that are built in to handle bubble classes. And one of the things that we haven't looked at in the past is open enrollment, and there are grade levels then that as they become bigger that we would eliminate open enrollment at that grade level. So for example, in one of the bubble in the second grade that has 149, there are 8 students in there that are open enrollment. So even by eliminating that, you bring that average down to 23.5. So we're not building this, we're not overbuilding, because obviously one of the concerns that we've heard throughout this whole time is that we got to make sure that our facilities are where they need to be, but we also can't underbuild, and we're not setting something up where we're looking into the high 20s for class sizes for elementary students, especially at those early ages, especially.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tim Zlokowski, Town of Grafton. First of all, I have an overall question. Is that overall attendance in the Grafton schools increasing, decreasing, or staying steady?
Attendance as in number of students? Or
Across
attendance?
the board, yeah. Total number
Enrollment.
of students.
It's down this year. We're
And
declining
last
this
year?
year by 56. We've declined by 56 students.
And last year?
We were up. I can
What's
give you
the
that number.
trend?
Well, you really look at 3-year trend is what you want to look at. And so for a 1-year trend, we're declining down. So if I look at, I can say that in 16-17 we are down 56 students. 15-16 we were up 19. 14-15 is 97. That's a little, the reason because that's when 4K was started, so as they came in, that was the add there. The year before we were minus 22. The year before we were minus 23.
So overall, it doesn't seem like there's a big demand for a lot more facilities here. And it looks like what you're trying to do is a field of dreams, build it and they will come. And that doesn't really seem necessary. But that's just a comment. But earlier you had said that first, referendum in April was $49 million, right? Correct,
Yes, correct, 49.5 million.
49.
Okay, and you were voted down, told no, right?
We were.
Okay, now if I understand right, you're coming back with $47 million?
No. What we've done, and what makes this problem harder, is that construction costs are 10% up from last year. So supply and demand has kicked in. So what was $49.5 million last year is at least $54 million this year, because of supply and demand. And so as we've looked at this, it was 47.3. It's now there have been adjustments that have been made that it really is at like 45, and the other one's at 50, whatever it is.
51.
Both of them have been brought down. And the idea of the listening sessions is to say, like, well, what do we value? So even one of the comments was, well, I think you're asking for too much. Well, what area do you see that we're asking for too much in? It'd be nice for the committee to hear a specific. Not that you should be able to do this for 15 million. Well, what would we cut? Because no one's passing a referendum right now that's touching 4 or 5 different buildings for $15 million, for $30 million. That's not happening. That's the cost of construction. It isn't the Taj Mahal. It's just the factual piece.
Well, let's get back to my original question.
Okay.
So the referendum in April was $49.5 million, and now you're going to come back with $55 million?
No, the referendum in
I thought-
April was 49.5. Option, the 3-campus solution is
right now.
45 million
Right now.
today. And
That's assuming this decrease in interest rate that you were
no.
trying to explain.
I'm just talking to construction costs. April referendum was 49.5 million. Now it's roughly 45 million. April referendum costs would go up 10%. So that the current day cost of that referendum would be roughly $53 million. Where right now the option that's being considered is $45 million. So a decrease.
So earlier you said that you wanted community input. You said you needed community input. Do you consider the April referendum community input?
Yes, we certainly consider the April referendum community input. And as a result, we went back and we looked at the survey that was done prior to that referendum that said, by and large, something needed to be done. That was clear in the survey that was done. A plan was put forward in April.
Well, we could talk about that whole survey in another way, because that survey was pretty biased. That survey did really not provide unbiased questions. So don't even talk about the survey. Let's just talk about the numbers.
Right. Well, let me just finish. So the referendum is an indicator. We held listening sessions then throughout all of June. We held 5 listening sessions throughout the community in each of the facilities, one at the town hall. And throughout those listening sessions, we heard from the community that something still needed to be done. And here we are. As a result of that continued feedback from the community, and I understand that you participated in one of those listening sessions, but what we heard is that something still needed to be done. We needed to continue to study the needs.
I don't know.
Which is
I
what
didn't
brought us
hear
to
that. I wasn't hearing that from other input. It seems like it's being driven by you, the board, not by the community. It seems like the board wants to represent the district and the teachers and the employees. The board doesn't want to represent who it's supposed to represent, and that's the taxpayers. You're supposed to represent the taxpayers, not the board, not the district, and not the employees. And the same goes with what the young lady said earlier about Act 10, and you're still not implementing Act 10. Have you implemented anything new with regard to Act 10 since you were turned down in April? Anything? One thing.
Anything new?
You didn't. So
anything
right?
new relative to Act 10?
I mean, there was nothing.
Have we?
You haven't changed anything since April, since you got the no vote.
Fund 46, thank you for someone saying that out loud. Fund 46 is one of
Let
the
me
things
just
that. Hold,
finish.
no, let
You
me.
guys
Let me.
can't really answer.
Okay,
so
let me finish
one
your.
other
No,
point.
we've
I have one
listened to
other
you.
point. On
I really don't
on-
want to.
on
I
your
don't.
proposal,
It just makes it bad when we talk over each
You have
other.
a bunch of maintenance issues
Okay.
on the proposal.
Okay, sure.
I have the table right now.
Well, you really
have
didn't, but I
maintenance
will give it to you.
expenses. I think
will give it to you.
$7 million you have for maintenance on these new facilities that you want to finance with a referendum 20 years out. Is that right? Am I reading that right? That you want to finance maintenance?
Maintenance items meaning replacement of roof sections, replacement of boilers, replacement of things that are at end of life now that need to be replaced. That's what's in those maintenance items. Windows that are 50 and 60 years old. Other structures
Well,
within.
that's not maintenance. That's remodeling. That would be under remodeling.
They're labeled in the
different than
plans.
Maintenance,
Just-
Maintenance
just-
is ongoing
Right.
expenses.
And-
Your
and perhaps-
maintenance should be in your regular budget.
Yeah, and
You
perhaps
all-
it's a good point, perhaps that is misrepresented in there. Maintenance line items in there were meant to correlate back to the Plunkett-Rasick study that was done in 2012. I mean, so they are not ongoing regular maintenance items. They were maintenance items that were identified relative to aging facilities.
That seemed kind of a roundabout answer, but so you're saying it's really not maintenance? Is that what you're saying? It's not really ongoing maintenance?
It's not ongoing maintenance. That is correct. It is items that were identified in the reports that Plunkett and Rasick and Kapoor put together in 2012 that have been updated for current costs, that have been reviewed by Hoffman and our own internal resources, elements that need to be replaced because they're end of
That's not what
life.
the word maintenance means, though. Well, that might be deferred maintenance. Is that what you mean, is deferred maintenance?
Roof structures have come to end of life. They need to be replaced. They're in that line item, among other things.
Putting replacement.
We certainly can do that.
Yes, that's
a good-
definitely
a great
something as we move
suggestion.
forward that we could
Yes.
easily do. I think
Clearly,
we're talking
there's some
about
confusion.
potato here. Like you're interpreting one word a different way than what they interpreted to try and make a broad stroke here in that sense. But that's definitely something that we could break out that would be more detailed in that sense. Definitely, that's a good suggestion.
Hi,
Hello.
Tanya Wilkin. I live over there on Mayfair, really close to these schools, actually. One of the things that I was curious about is a lot of everybody that's arguing around here, how many of you guys have actually toured the schools and seen them? I went to every single one of these schools. I started at Woodview, came here, went to GHS. They all are run down. We have our kids in these schools that are getting sick all the time because there's mold issues and everything like that. Yes, you can argue all the time that this stuff should have been done before, and it probably should have been. A lot of these people who are up here are people who weren't there when it should have been done, so I think it's kind of a moot point at this point because we're trying to fix these things now. We're trying to get things in place so that my first and second grader can have a good experience here and aren't having those issues and getting sick. We have teachers who have horrible infections in the beginning of the year because they haven't been there all summer and they come back and they have these colds and everything because of the state that these things are in. One of the questions I do have for you guys, which I'm not going to yell at you, is with the two-campus option, you're going to be putting a lot more kids into this school, but it didn't look like a lot of like the arts and the music and everything was becoming bigger. So are you going to then cut down on art and music, or how would that work?
Actually, you're talking John Long Middle School.
Yeah.
When this becomes a first through fifth grade, actually both choir and band become music rooms. So there's two spaces to accommodate music. Art, you have a nice art room, but that's actually being expanded to another classroom to accommodate art. So the specials are increasing. The gymnasium sizes are obviously, they're pretty good, but that was brought up in the administrative team meetings, and it was addressed, basically saying that we can't have all the specials just in one room with each of those. So it is in the drawings, and it is represented that way.
Okay, I missed that. And then, I don't know if I didn't hear or not, but as far as with that same one, the 2-campus one, when you're doing when you have to do the trailer sites, I mean, how do you work with security in that, because it's not a part of the building then?
The temporary structures that would be connecting that back to the school would provide security.
Okay.
It's not like they're walking across the parking lot outside.
I guess I just mean, like, if you're looking at having the double entries and everything like that, I don't understand how those are, if they're going to be off, then like they're on site, but they're not.
They're on site, they're adjacent to the building, they're connected with temporary construction to the building.
Okay, so the students would actually go in and out, have to go through everything. There wouldn't be access to those buildings through an outside.
Yes.
Okay.
Through a temporary enclosure.
Okay.
And the one piece that I didn't cover is there are opportunities for classes that are more self-contained, currently self-contained, to be located in that facility. So there isn't going to be as much need for traveling back and forth. So is it an inconvenience for those 2 years? Yeah, it is. But it's one of the ways that we can give you a good product or a good building in the end.
The only other thing, obviously I like the 3-campus one better than this one, because I'm not sure I love the idea of going from 4 grades, because wouldn't the high school then be 7 grades in one building?
6 grades.
6 grades.
6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Oh, I'm sorry, 7, yeah.
Yeah.
You're correct.
I kind of feel like that's a lot, but okay, that's all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daria Alexander Snyder. I have a 7th grader here at John Long. He graduated from Woodview. I have a 5th grader at GES. He has a cognitive disability. And my house is actually in the Kennedy School District after the rezoning that was done 3 years ago. I have 2 really basic questions. My first one, I'm showing my ignorance. I know before Dr. Leitner was brought in, the Grafton School District was in debt. And I actually never heard, was the budget balanced? Is the budget currently balanced, or are we in debt right now? Before even talking about this referendum, are we in debt?
The budget is currently balanced, and there's one of the things we talked about is one of the things that we've done in the last year is added Fund 46, which allows us to make long-term improvements to our buildings, and we have $100,000 budgeted out of our current balanced budget towards that, so that by 2021, it showed up here, we'd be at $1 million in that sense.
Okay, that's
And
good.
you can, that's a different, yes, that's a good, yes.
Yes, there is.
That's true. That's
There is
very true,
existing
which is why we
debt.
showed that.
There
Yes.
is existing debt.
The green part, yep.
To the tune of, I think it's
Topher's looking for that.
somewhere between $6 and $7 million.
That we're currently paying off?
That we're currently paying off. That would have
Okay.
been financed or
2000.
borrowed in 2000 for the 2000 referendum.
And when is that projected to be paid off, that current debt?
So after this year's payment, the total outstanding debt is roughly $5 million. It is paid off complete in 2021.
2021, that's correct.
Okay. My other question, has it been calculated how much will be saved with busing with the 2-campus option? I know my 7th grader, for example, is in 8th grade math now, so I've been told that next year when he's in 8th grade, he'll be dropped off at the high school in the morning to take 9th grade math, then he'll be bused back here for the rest of the day, so that's an extra bus right there. You know, if you combine and at least a dozen kids are in that situation.
Correct.
If you combine the middle school and the high school, obviously you'll eliminate some of the busing issues, but has that been calculated, how much money we would save with that 2-campus option?
We haven't run all the numbers because with the 2 options, they both have different things that go with it. I know that it costs $10,000 for us a year to bus students from John Long Middle School to the high school to take accelerated math. So I would say that there's a cost savings there. Is that an overall cost savings with all the other changes that are going on? I can't say that. One of the discussions that we're having administratively is that a possibility for us to be having a teacher here that would be teaching that class, that would be aligned with what's happening at the high school? Does that have to be a bus cost? So are there other ways for us to internally save some money and still provide a good education for students that are accelerated and get them ready for that accelerated math as they come to the high school? So we're looking at that now as we get ready for our budget planning cycle for next fall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Swenson. I just moved here August 1st. We didn't want to move this area because of a job change, and I'm voting yes. And I can tell you that schools make a difference when you're looking, your property values, for all that. Because we almost didn't move here because we saw in April you guys didn't pass your referendum. And we're like, they don't care about their schools. And schools are a main part of the community. We just ended up coming here because we're hoping you do pass the referendum because facilities do make a difference. They do. I came from Middleton in Wisconsin, and we have pretty nice facilities, and it does. There's a difference. And some of you people that are complaining or saying they're full of crap, have you ever considered being on the school board and trying to do something different? It just seems that they're getting a little too negative. So, thanks.
Hi, my name is Bruce Heiser. I live in the village of Grafton here for over 40 years. My children went to Grafton School District, very nice facility. I don't know whether or not you do need this or you don't need it. The one question that I'm looking at is the maintenance management of the facilities. I worked in a facility that was probably 4 times bigger than the Grafton School District in the operations end of the part where we took care of the facilities. And my question to you is when we looked at the referendum last time when it failed, I saw a video that was available of people showing what was bad with the school system. And what I noticed, one thing that just hit me right away was the fact they were talking about doorknobs not working, door closers not working, a faucet here not working, a toilet not available, lights that needed to be replaced, stuff for the windows that needed to be replaced. Really, does that make sense to go out for 20 years on a loan to buy that stuff? Shouldn't you be doing that within the district, not going out for a loan for that type of stuff?
You're absolutely right. Yes, those things should be covered in general maintenance.
Right.
And annually, the maintenance budget is established as part of the overall budget. One of the constraints or one of the challenges that we have with the school district budget is that roughly 80%, 75 to 80% of the costs that we spend are tied up in people. Last night, a gentleman used the example of it sounds like, you had a group of people sitting at this table that represented people, and then you had a group of people sitting at this time that represented facilities, and each table was negotiating for money relative to the total annual operating budget. And to a large degree, that is somewhat how it works. And over the years, yes, we have funded the people costs. It's the biggest driver of the budget. It's not to say that we only did what was left over here, but we did the bare minimums in many cases because that's the funding that we had available. In many instances, and I would agree with you, things like leaky faucets, things like broken window tiles and things, we have to get better at taking care of those and managing those things. We have good staff that will be taking care of that. We have a plan in place now to address having money available in greater proportions to take care of that by virtue of this new law that was passed in 2013, the Fund 46 that we've established. But over the years, we've also spent money, probably more so than we should have, on facilities that have already been at the end of their useful life. Jamie told me not that long ago, we have been maintaining a piece of equipment where the fluid or some component you can't even buy on the open market anymore. So we have been putting money into maintenance items of things that have well past their useful life. The referendum here will address those matters, those most important matters that will allow us to stop investing, making what I would consider not wise investments in the continued maintenance of those systems. It's just something that needs to be done. But yes, we need to do a better job at addressing day in and day out ongoing maintenance.
I understand that large HVAC systems, roof systems, foundations, new equipment has to go on some kind of budget, on some kind of bonding issue or capital purchases like that. But these small maintenance items should never be put in a bond issue. I mean, I wouldn't, if I needed a new doorknob on my house, I'm not going to go take out a loan for 20 years to put that doorknob on. That just doesn't make any sense. The other issues I can't address because I don't know whether you need them or not. I'm just talking about these items that really don't make sense to be on some sort of referendum or bonding issue. Is there no way that you can increase your maintenance budget within that referendum as a separate item to say, look, we got to take care of these small items, and the way we do it is this way, rather than going and issuing bonds so that you cover it for 20 years?
I'm Sam Sons. I'm with Hoffman. I've been helping put together the budget, so I was just going to go through. Do you want to hold this for a second so I can scroll through? Some of the maintenance items, the larger ones, are replace the parking lot, upgrading to DDC controls. It's chillers, air handling units, water heaters, replacing generators, roof sections. It's tuck pointing. It's replacing some of the boiler piping that's been getting that needs it. Replacing windows. It is some flooring in there. There is some things in there for upgrading bathrooms, so that's obviously going to have some fixtures to do that. Electric panels, and again, different schools, a lot of it's the same stuff, unit ventilators, air handling units.
Right.
So there's not a lot of little things. I'm not going to say there's not any that have maybe a smaller dollar amount to them, but most of these are some fairly big ticket items that I guess would be better termed as deferred maintenance. And Jamie and Topher have gone through this to try to figure out what does make sense to put into a referendum, and we've gone through and kind of validated some of those things, but they are bigger ticket items that just, I think somebody said earlier, they're at the end of their lifespan, and it's not easy. It's no different than if your own home, if you got to replace your roof.
Right.
That's a big item, and you
Exactly.
got to save for that for either some time or you got to take out a loan.
Right, exactly. I understand those large items that need that type of maintenance, but according to this video that was, I don't even know who published it, that was on the internet last year, they went on and on for a half an hour about these small items. And I got to be honest with you, I think people looked at that and said, what, are they crazy? Why would you put a small item like that on a bonding issue, And that's what it appeared to me as when I looked at it. And that might have been some of the reason why that bonding issue failed.
And I think it's a great point, and thanks for sharing that, because at the end of the day, we can take a closer look at all of the items that would be included in the referendum and pull those out that are things that are short-term in nature that should not be
Right.
financed on a long-term basis, and then develop a plan to pay for them over time that comes out of the operating budget, much to what you're saying, and hopefully bring down that overall cost from that 45 and keep whittling it down. It's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And we know that we need to fine-tune these options. So there's two options, and once we get to one option, then our sessions will revolve around being able to take tours and being able to outline, this is what we're fixing with this referendum. So it'll answer some of those questions that would go with it. Someone earlier talked about taking tours, but this is just the beginning piece of that. It isn't a final piece. There's a lot of pieces. A lot of communities don't have listening sessions before the board makes a decision. We're trying to make sure that we're really hearing everyone so that there's informed decisions made about the needs that we have in our district.
And in this design, the way we're trying to reconfigure the district, we're trying to create efficiencies so that more money can be put in to maintenance issues, addressing them. I just started here in August. I'd like to be here for a long time. I don't want to find myself 10 years from now having to go to referendum to take care of maintenance issues. I want to take care of it in the operational budget. And so these two plans, in many ways, create some efficiencies where we can better afford to address those maintenance issues.
Take this thing off. Brandon Ralph. I have 4 kids in the district. I don't teach in this district, but I teach in a different district. So first and foremost, I'd like to say education is very important. It is an investment to everybody in this community. If you look at outgoing communities or communities around us, they've passed referendums recently. As Tuesday night we had Germantown that passed a referendum. So it is very important. And for people to rip on teachers for this Act 10 thing and, us whatever, not working hard, not putting in our money or whatnot, I guarantee you my kids can have a more civil conversation and let people talk than some of you in here tonight. which is pretty sad. And next time you want to clap for somebody, and you can smile all you want, but next time you want to clap at somebody disrespecting my occupation, let me know where you work, and I'll come down when someone's disrespecting yours, and I'll start clapping as well. Back to...
I would focus.
Okay, well, we can talk later on, too.
Let's focus.
Right now I'm
Let's
talking.
just
Okay.
focus. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Let's
I would like
just
to
focus
thank
here.
all of you guys for putting this together, and whoever's on the committee for putting this together as well. I think the purpose of this whole thing tonight was to give suggestions or get some feedback for these two different plans. So the only thing I really had to give to you is with the middle school and the high school being together. Have you looked at, and none of us is kind of way down the road, but schedule-wise, are the high schoolers and the middle schoolers going to be crossing paths? I know they're sharing a media center. Is that, because that's just the concern I have is, you know, a sixth grader crossing paths with a senior in high school, perhaps.
Yep.
So is that
And
something you've looked at?
We have.
Thank you.
And good question. And we had Mr. Deering, who I see here now, and Mr. Manti, who's the high school principal, look at that and have discussions about that, because as you look at the two-campus option, there's multiple spaces that have to be shared. And the reason why they're being shared now is because when you add sixth grade into that mix, you added more classrooms. And so we took out some of those specials that were going to have their own space. So whether it's the art room is not going to have their own space, you say the media center, the library is another, the music room, the STEM area that we have here that's only for middle school. Those are things that would be shared. And the reason why they're shared is because by adding those on, it raises the cost even more. And so the discussion that we had was, could it happen whereby you're able to do that? And the answer was yes. And that's what we even, as we've designed and looked at the design structure of where some of these things are, making sure are there the least amount of corridors for students to be able to go down there. But they wouldn't have the same bell schedule that would allow there to be different passing times.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
One last thing. Does the state control in any way the district's budget, the district school budget? In other words, can the district go out and spend as much money as they can collect? Or does the state say, hey, you guys got to hold it down to 2% or 5% or whatever? Can you explain that, please?
Well, right. So in 1993, prior to that, boards could pass budgets locally. After 1993, they created the revenue limit. So, for example, the past 2 years, the state has increased how much we're allowed to raise per member, so per student that basically lives in the district, by $0. Now, they have made some increases outside of that revenue limit, but the primary source of our revenue comes within the revenue limit, and that hasn't been increased either of the past 2 years. How much is it? We get $10,500 per student, which is about what we've been getting the past couple of years.
So the state does control the district's budget?
Yes.
If the referendum passes, can you guarantee there will be no more referenda until 2040 when this is paid off?
I would think that's the goal.
That's not what I asked.
So what we would say is we are building for currently what we currently have. If people talk about like these surges and, you know, if we pass this referendum, more people are going to move into the community and the village has a new plan and the town has space. If there is we can't guarantee that if there's a ton of people that move in with school-age kids, then like, would we have to add on? Yes, we'd have to add on, because if there's more students. If you're asking, can we guarantee that what we're building now will meet the needs of our students? Yes, I believe we can. That's been our goal, is to be able to say that we're not going to need to come back before the debt is paid off.
Okay. You know, part of my skepticism is what went wrong with 2000? Nobody has addressed, gee, we had this referendum in 2000, we used some of the money to buy computers and other stuff, but we haven't paid off that referendum. Now we're going back to the well for more money. So what went wrong with the 2000 referendum? What's going to be done differently this time that you're not going back to the well until the bill's paid?
Yeah, and we actually broke down what was paid, and computers is a perfect example. Why that was included, I don't know, but we've had that discussion to make sure that the things that we are including are things that are designed to last for longer than 20 years. So That's a part of your question. The other part of the question is the renovations that were made to GES were cosmetic and made it look better, but did not address the structural piece. And what that decision was, I don't know, but it didn't address that issue. And that's what's brought us to this point here, because GES is crumbling internally, and we need to fix that.
Okay. The other question I have is, do the DPI figures that they publish online for fringe benefits, do those include the payroll tax, Social Security and Medicare?
They should, yeah.
Okay, so when I see the lowest paid teacher at $50,191, that's the $40,000 salary, and the $10,191 is Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, whatever else. Your
if you're
cost of
referring
retirement
to
plan contribution.
the PI 1202 report is a report we have to give to DPI, and that includes all those benefits, yes.
Okay. And back to the first comment, I've looked through the chart, and the lowest I've seen for a teacher, I've seen 3 of them at $50,191. I see that the average cost of a teacher is $81,937, and I have not heard from the school board a commitment to contain costs. Paul, are you going to do something to contain costs?
Well, of course, we look to contain costs year in and year out. And Act 10 provides...
What are you doing?
Well, Act 10 provides a provision. I mean, wages can only increase by virtue of the increase in CPIU. All other elements, as it relates to negotiations, are off the table as a result of Act 10. So over the years, we have been looking to maintain salaries that are attractive to retain teachers and to attract teachers for the positions that come in. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but the compounded annual growth rate of our spend over the last 10 or 15 years, the chart that I have, is somewhere below 2% in total for the overall spend of the district. So I think in terms of a commitment to contain costs, yes, I can make that commitment. And every year when we look at the budget, we are looking for ways to contain costs. I mean, we've adopted the elements of Act 10 as it relates to teachers contributing to insurance, as it relates to changing insurance carriers to the tune of $2 million savings, as it relates to the elimination of retirement benefits to the teachers. Every year, we do look at those elements year in and year out. And it's a fine balance between, and again, I'm talking about personnel costs because that's about 80% of our spend. But it is a fine balance between maintaining appropriate levels of benefit and compensation to keep and retain and attract good staff.
What are you doing for teachers whose spouses have insurance coverage available through their work?
Right now, and I can tell you, we do talk on an annual basis about a spousal carve-out, and at this point, we haven't adopted a spousal carve-out as you've alluded to there.
Okay, get back to me when you do.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Shoemaker, father of 4. I've got 4 kids right here in Grafton. We moved here about 9 years ago, and I just wanted to make kind of a quick comment and oversight. I've been involved in this process for about a year and a half, coming to meetings, being a part of the survey, just getting a full understanding. And, obviously the referendum failed in April, and we got some good feedback, and we've got some proposals that has really been worked on over the past 6 months. And a lot of it I've seen firsthand. Some of it I've just heard based on the feedback that we've gotten with everybody involved. But I just think we have to really focus on what we're kind of looking towards the future. Whatever happened, we can't control what happened in 2000. I wasn't here. I know a lot of people weren't involved. Mistakes were made. We need to move past that. With this referendum, I think everyone's done a good job. I don't know anything about facilities management. I don't know the costs involved, but I know you guys have done a very thorough job. You've had it looked at by a lot of different people. So I trust those numbers. And ultimately, but that still gives us the ability to go back and scrutinize and continue to focus on that. So with that being said, I support it. I still have to kind of go through the options. There are still some questions in my mind, but I know what you guys are doing is for the good of our community. It's the good of our families. It's a place that we want to be comfortable living in. And I understand there's always going to be people vote no, vote yes, and some minds are not going to be changed. But at the end of the day, we want a community where we feel good about the place we call home. And, some of the comments that were made here tonight, quite frankly, make me really sad to call Grafton my home, because I know we have to be more open and honest. It's all good people here. So with that being said, I support what you guys are doing. We're going to continue to hold the feet to the fire, make sure you're accountable on a fiscal standpoint, but appreciate what you guys are doing, and let's vote yes and get this thing done. That's all I'm going to say.
My name is Dave Francic. I lived in Grafton, moved here from Milwaukee, and when I was a little bit younger in grade school. I know how it is to go to MPS. A lot of you don't. All right, you come to a very real good community. And now I heard right away Act 10. Big fan of Act 10. I'm going to tell you that right now. I am. I like Act 10. I think they need to pay a little bit more. But guess what? Act 10 happened. They are paying more. We won. Good job. Funny thing is, my wife is a teacher, so that money kind of comes out of my pocket. But I agree with it. And I agree with a lot of things that some of you people said on both sides. Operating costs, I think he was talking about. We got to really look into that. That's awesome. But, making the teacher pay for everything is kind of ridiculous. And you're looking at wages, and you're telling your median, well, you got administration and you got teachers. They're kind of two separate entities in the school district. So you can't take those, weigh them out and say, see, look at 80,000. That's great. Actually, my wife's been a teacher for, 15 years almost. 4-year education you have to get. And with all your benefits, most teachers are making right around 50 grand. Anybody in the private sector would, after 4 years of education, some 6, some have their masters, making only 50 after 15 years. Yeah, you guys probably hang yourself. You would be like, this is a catastrophe. So to blame the teachers about this is ridiculous. Our community, Grafton, is great for a reason. It's because we have good communities. We have good schools. We have good teachers. Our police are great. We're building stuff. I work in the hospital industry. And let me tell you, if they treated hospital staff like everyone wants to treat teachers, you wouldn't want to go to hospital to get taken care of. I mean, this is the honest truth. So with that being said, we got to get off the back of the teachers right now, because it's ridiculous to make them pay. It's like telling our military, our army men to go pay for their own tanks. Let's get real now, all right? Don't raise your hand. Don't try to say anything. Bottom line is, what my input on this whole thing is, maybe a plan C might be better. A plan C, because I know you guys said you had 10 plans. We had A, which is now, 50-some thousand or million. We have plan B, or the other one is 45 million or something like that. Maybe put a plan C out there for the people who don't have kids in the school district anymore and don't want to pay for it. Maybe put that plan C out. Maybe there's maybe a little cheaper route, because this gentleman who doesn't like teachers, he made a point by saying the operating costs, and there's another plan. There's got to be a plan C. We didn't pass a 49 million referendum. That is the voice. That is true. That is very true. So you can't put out something right around the same thing. It's going to happen. Again, it's going to fail. So we maybe need to have a plan C that does bring down some of those costs, maybe in the 30 millions, where everyone can come together and say, it works a little for the teachers, works for the kids, it works for the community, and go from there. So maybe a plan C might have to come out, or you guys are just going to waste a lot of time and have another failed referendum. All right?
Thank you. And I would say it would be helpful if there's, as you look at the options, if you could give an idea of what you say. I would prefer that this is the things I like, or these are the things that I think maybe why are you adding this? So something specific would help the committee in that sense, because committee has looked at a lot of different options and trying to do that, and so that's what we're looking for the community to give specific pieces with that. Yep.
Paul Vilker, Town of Grafton. Just a little follow-up on what he just said. Are you committed to a referendum for one of these two options?
At this point, it's still sitting in the committee, and the committee will continue to take the feedback from tonight, all of it, and make a recommendation to the board.
As he mentioned, the last referendum failed because of cost, right? Does everybody agree with that? Well, it's pretty obvious.
Certainly,
I mean, nobody's going to vote against something that's good for education, but they will vote against it if it's too expensive.
Can I add a reason why, one of the reasons why I voted against the referendum and some of the other people that I heard, one of the reasons that doesn't have to do with cost is that as far as we could tell, there was nothing holding the school district to using those funds in the way that they said they were going to do it.
You'll have to answer that.
Does that make sense? I mean, there's nothing in the referendum that said the district had to actually use the money that was going to be allotted for sure what they said they were going to use it for.
I'm not a legal expert, but
No, it failed because of cost. Let's get it right.
Certainly, we heard in the listening sessions as a follow-up that cost was an issue. Absolutely.
So, why are we here tonight with two options that are very close to the same number? Why don't we have a committee that comes in with something that's palatable for the community? I'm not against education. Nobody here is against education. But they are against excessive cost, and that's what you're looking at. And you come back tonight with two options that are obvious you're looking at, some variation of two options that is very similar. If it fails again, we've gone through a terrible exercise, wasted a lot of time. Why not have something that meets everybody's needs?
And that's what the committee's struggling with. Is so you're right.
40,
so it's at 45.
We struggle with 47 million. That's what we struggle with.
Yep.
How about an option that's down in 20 million, where people can say, "I can afford that." This economy is not good. People are losing jobs. We're in a time trying to spend a lot of money when people are struggling, and it's a wrong time to spend a lot of money. So why don't we go back to the drawing board, come up with an option that makes sense, and take the excessive stuff out? If you're in a two-campus situation, why not sell the Kennedy's location? Take the money from Kennedy, put it into the fund. You don't have to have a district office there. Stay in the Grafton school area. Put an office there for them. I don't know how much value that land is, but I got to believe it's pretty valuable, isn't it? So why not sell that property? So I don't know.
It certainly is an element that will be, and it's been talked about at the committee level.
Yep.
Your point is well made that cost is a factor. Members of the committee are here. The notes are being taken. We will certainly take that and look at options that may bring that cost down.
We just have to be thrifty. And one of the ways to do it is get rid of that property. It's got to have some value there. So I suggest you go back to the drawing board and come back with a number that is more palatable to the community. And I'm not against education, so don't go that route.
No, it's a reasonable and fair comment.
If you want to do anything, pay the teachers more and forget the infrastructure. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Pam King. I live in the village of Grafton. I understand this gentleman saying that it should be less money, but I'm also hearing people in the room saying we don't want to go back to referendum for another 40 years. So if we were to lower it to a 30 million or a 20 million or whatever we say that magic number is, which as a committee member, I've been in this for almost 2 years and said, what is the magic number? And we really can't really assess what that is. So people voted no for a lot of reasons, and if one of them was money, we don't know what that magic number is. However, if we went to a lower number, how low can we go to fix things and not have to go back to referendum in less than 20 years? And that's a huge concern I have. I don't want to do this again. I don't think any of us does, but it's a balancing act that I know you're challenged with on a minutely basis, it feels like now. So when we talk about lowering it, how low can we go and still do some things and not have to come back and do this again if our district grows, if our challenges change? We want a 40-year guarantee. I don't know how a $30 million referendum will give us that. So I don't know.
Thank you.
So 20 years even. How will we not have to go back in 20 years if we only go with 30?
And that's the issue, is we're trying to touch all of our buildings and bring them all up to code, bring them all up to the expectations that we have for our kids. And are there some things that we can be fine-tuning? Yes, but you're right. That's the hard thing, is not knowing a magic number. Thank you.
This is a quick follow-up question on the mold issue. Can you confirm that there is no known mold issues in any Grafton school?
Jamie, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
You can
We can.
confirm that there are none.
We had a staff member earlier this year that complained of a mold issue. We brought in EMC. Was it EMC? EMC came in, did a report that was shared with the board that said there was nothing, there was no mold other than what would normally be found in any place in that sense.
Great. That's off the table then. The only other question, or only other statement I have is, I think you're going to continue to get a lot of pushback on any referendum until you bring benefits in line with community standards. Employee benefits should be brought in line with community standards. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for teachers to take a cut in pay or anything like that. It's the benefit packages that just should be brought in with what everybody else is paying. And I think you'd have a whole lot better time getting a referendum passed.
Okay, thank you.
First, thank you guys for all the work. I know it's a lot of time and hours you've put into this. I kind of agree with that last statement about in line with community standards. I just wonder if we all have a different definition of what standards we want for our community. I supported the last referendum. I'm sure I'll support the next one. I've only been here for 7 years. I live in the town. I don't want to feel like we made a mistake building in the town when 10 miles away they just passed an $84 million referendum after failing a bunch of smaller referendums. So as far as a dollar amount, a concern I have, and I think Pam's comments make some sense as far as what's the dollar amount, I'd much rather come at it from a what do we need, not what's a dollar amount, and then have to come back again in 10 years. I feel like that's maybe where Germantown was at. My one specific question would be with financing. Topher, I think you mentioned what the rate they're projecting, Baird projecting is like 4.5%. Is that, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, basically at today's rates, which would be $2.5 million on a $10 million loan, or 3% on a $27.5 million loan.
Right.
What they're building into it is that
rising rates.
they're using 4.5%
Right.
in case those rates do go
Did
up.
they come up with, I know I'm in the investment business and I know most experts kind of predicted in 2010 rates were going to rise. That was almost 7 years ago. That still hasn't happened. Did they also budget in or show a line item where perhaps they don't go up as much?
They could run that scenario for us, but we don't have that
Because
scenario
had we
run.
passed the last one, correct me if I'm wrong, the rate that was put in there, which was used against the referendum, was significantly higher than what it would have been.
Well, and it was frankly paid off over a longer period of time, and they had to wrap that debt around
Right.
the current debt for a longer period
But the
of time
rate
as
they
well.
used, the projection they used was higher than the rate that we could have secured. So, I mean, I appreciate erring on the high side and maybe surprising on the positive, but just from a knowledge standpoint that rates may not go up in that period of time, which could be a fairly significant savings over the life of that 26 million.
Right, and as we get closer to that time, those projections can be fine-tuned.
I mean, especially because that was used against the referendum last time as a cost of the referendum. So just
Sure.
a significant chance it won't be that high, though, is all I'm saying. So Thanks for the work.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Dempsey. I live in the village of Grafton. I'm probably just going to repeat a lot of things that have already been said, because there have been a lot of good things said, but I do want to at least vote a second time for some of these good comments. I moved to the village of Grafton 15 years ago. I specifically moved here for the school district. I'm one of those people that selected that as the number one reason for living here. I moved from Saukville, and now I'm looking at that and wondering if maybe that was a bad economic decision. Maybe I should have stayed there since they're getting new schools. It is an investment in our property. I think you could pretty easily do the math and figure out that the small increase in property tax, the payback on that probably works out pretty good if anybody is going to sell their house. Granted, if you're going to live in that house for 40 years, maybe it's not a good investment. But I think it's pretty reasonable that investing in the schools, having very good schools, is good for your property value. I appreciate the comments made about Act 10. I just wanted to clarify. I think you did say that health or basically benefits are $2 million less now than they were a few years ago.
Health and dental, from where they were before Act 10, it's $1.8 million less last year.
So
They've
we are
gradually come down.
So we are
then.
seeing savings
Yes.
due to Act 10.
Yes.
Okay. Honestly, I think we're hearing a lot of good ideas on how to market whatever we come up with better, because there is a lot of confusion out there on facts like that. To get to the point of tonight's meeting, which option is the better option? I am leaning towards the two-campus option, and I think the reason I'm leaning towards that is I suspect that the operating expenses of that are much lower than what we have now. And I think as we get into the details and start really explaining those operating expenses and how that will affect the tax rate, I think this is going to look a lot more favorable. So I'm excited to see those details as we get into this further. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Eidman. We've been Grafton residents for 20 plus years. Our kids both graduated from Grafton schools. And I guess my comment is 49, 45, 55 million dollars is a daunting number. It's daunting to any of us, unless we win the Powerball on Saturday. But if you look at the increase in tax of between $12.80 per taxpayer and $20, I believe it was, depending on the amount spent, and you break it down in simplest terms, $12 is 2 or 3 cups of Starbucks a year that your tax increases to have better schools in this district. It's a lunch somewhere, one time, $20. Money's important to everyone. It's important to all of us, and how we value our money gives you the right to have an opinion. But if you look at it in simplest terms, this is an easy decision. Spending this money for our kids, for the next generation, makes sense. Whether it's option 1 or option 2, they both make sense.
Thank you.
You know, I'll tell you something.
It is.
Yeah, here.
It's easy for you to say it's only 2 or 3
So that-
cups of Starbucks.
So it's a monthly number.
Yes, monthly amount. So, yeah, if you're escrowing, you're going to need to escrow another $12.40 a month at the 150 level, 150,000, and about $29 a month on a $350,000 home.
It's easy for you to say it's only $12, it's only this. You want to increase it, fine, you pay my extra taxes. I don't see the need for it. I travel all through the city. I'm in sales. I get into good schools, I get into bad schools. I get into charter schools, I get into private schools. And you know what? Some of the best schools are in the oldest buildings. And to me, you haven't proved to me that we really need to do all this remodeling, we need to do all that. You know, pay as we go, just like businesses. And as far as the other person that said, oh, why should teachers pay? You know, in the private sector, and I call on all kinds of companies because of the product that I sell, Companies will say, where I worked, you're going to have, insurance has gone up. You're going to have to pay more. They're no longer paying 25%, their employees. They're paying close to 50. And this isn't just where I work, it's all over. Are they given the choice, well, would you like to pay more? No, they're told this is it. Companies have had pay freezes for the last 7-8 years. I go into companies, they haven't given their employees a raise in years because they can't. But yet, all I'm hearing is, oh, the poor teachers, they shouldn't have to pay more. Too bad, so sad. If you don't like it, I've been in companies where they're told, we took a cut, where I used to work, we took a cut in our commissions. If you don't like it, you can talk to us, but there's the door, don't let it hit you. So, no, you have to prove to me that this is really valuable. These school buildings are not falling apart, they're not falling down. Yes, they need repair, let's repair them. But do we need to build a Taj Mahal? Do we need to do all this other stuff? No. The only thing you showed me that ever made sense is the industrial arts. That's the only thing that I think really makes sense that you want to expand that.
And certainly we appreciate your
comments. Other than that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll look to incorporate your comments in further study as the committee continues to do its work.
We appreciate everyone's. I don't want to cut people's thoughts off, and we'll stay here. And if people want to come up and talk to one of us individually, we've gone over. We wanted to be done by 8. It's 8:30. We appreciate you sticking with us, and we appreciate you giving us feedback. We've given you that sheet of paper. We've supplied the SurveyMonkey link as well, so that you can give specific feedback that we can share with the committee next Thursday when we meet. But if you have individual comments, you're welcome to come up here. We do appreciate you coming tonight, and have a great night and a great weekend. Thank you.